Hello and welcome to the Nash Tackle Off the Hook podcast. Just to make you aware, this podcast may contain some explicit/offensive language, and if that's not your thing, you don't have to listen, but I have given you a warning. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
You don't know the half of it, but anyway. I'm skating on the thinnest ice known to man.
He said, and they put a poison in the tank that just instantly kills them. He went and we've run out of it, so we cut their heads off with shovels.
Suddenly, bang! The whole boat exploded.
Take your sort of 8-inch long piranha and imagine that at 4, 5, maybe 6 feet.
I said, I've revived your dead fish. F off, he said. You haven't.
That was just humongous. It was... I couldn't believe what I was looking at.
I'm just battling this fish out, and I know it's a black man. I'm saying I'll never be a naughty boy again.
If you catch fish and you return them to the water, then you are my brother.
Hello and welcome to the Nash Tackle Off the Hook podcast. This week's guest, I'm in the comfort of his own home, a real maverick, an original, and an all-round top bloke. Very funny as well, as you'll find out through the course of this podcast. It's none other than the northern legend that is Frank Warwick. Frank, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks, Hassan. It's always nice to see you. I'm doing very well health-wise.
Good.
Yeah, things are going good. Not been drinking much over Christmas and New Year.
Just when we start recording this, yeah?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's... I've laid off.
He's coming. I better get some down.
It is tempting because no matter what you think, I've done this for a long time, you know, and I've done loads of talks and all that. It always sort of... A quick one now and again does settle your nerves a bit.
You're not nervous, surely.
No, I'm not. I mean, actually, I did that talk recently for that Bite Out of Cancer. I was going over there with my mate Martin, and he said, do you not get nervous doing these talks? Because you never know how big the audience will be. I says, mate, my heartbeat hasn't risen by one. Not even one. I said, I've done that many, you know, and I'm that relaxed when I'm talking. I said, I just talk like I'm with all my mates in the pub.
Yeah.
Or, you know, when we're out fishing and we just sort of chewing the fat and talking about all kinds of bollocks and things.
Yeah.
You know, it gets... How many times have you been out there and you've gone, God, imagine if we'd have recorded that.
Yeah.
You
Too
know,
many.
some of the pure gems that have come out, and you think, wow. I mean, some of the stuff we've been talking about just before we did this was like very interesting, wasn't it?
Some
really?
of it also probably would have got us shut down.
Yeah,
so it's a good show.
very libelous, very libelous and dodgy, but brilliant as well.
But thank you for inviting me in, mate.
You're welcome.
Instead of us both driving down to Essex, it made sense that we both met in Manchester, mate.
Yeah,
didn't
it did actually, mate. And because we both live up this way, and you've come to my 280-year-old cottage. You know, it's a bit different, isn't it?
Mate, I love it. And I brought the snow with me, mate. Cause
it was just snowing, wasn't it? First time it snowed for ages, just as you arrived, yeah.
Ridiculous.
So,
normally, with my podcast guests, we do sort of a, I'd say a rundown of captures, places.
Yeah.
But knowing you and being very fortunate enough to have been on the bank with you and talked to you a fair bit, I'm going to do something a little bit different with this podcast. I think your mind, your sort of experimentation and your thoughts around carp are what really sort of not makes you stand out, because you stand out anyway because you've done an awful lot and you've caught an awful lot and you've publicised a lot of that. But that is the sort of unique part, I think, of Mr. Frank Warwick. So I want to try and sort of run through various aspects and just get a little bit of a real insight into your mind and how that works and what you've experienced. And in that, obviously, we'll reference captures and places you fish. But I think that is where I want to sort of take it. And I wanted to start with, I mean, it's a broad area, but bait. You've talked to me a lot before about bait and your thoughts around bait and your experiences from fishing. Talk to me about, bait, just your general findings, experimentation with things over the course of your fishing, mate.
Wow, it's a huge subject, really, Hassan. I mean, my thoughts on bait, I'm very much... I used to get pigeonholed as... he only uses single hook baits and all this, you know, the old fluros and that. And nothing could be further from the truth, actually. That was just part of the process at the time that caught me more fish than I could have ever dreamt of, really. It was like it fitted at that moment in time, but I'm not stupid. I realised that to drop the guard on a lot of fish, you need to feed them and get them competing. So it was a different tactic. But generally speaking, I much prefer to catch them over food, over bait.
Right.
As soon as you start talking about food and bait, people automatically think I'm talking about boilies, which isn't always the case. I hate being stereotypical where people just think along terms of what company you're with and what boilies are you using and all that. I use a lot of different things. One of the great joys of carp fishing is we're fishing for omnivores which can eat untold different substances. Okay, they've only got, limited enzymes to digest what we're feeding them, but the trypsin that they have in their digestive tract is engineered towards, breaking down bloodworm and, mollusks and shrimp and weed. It's very, very sort of generic to carp. That's what they've evolved to break down. So some of the things we're throwing at them in boilies are not natural to them. Having said that, we've overcome that, and we're using yeast-based enzymes now to help the breakdown factor of some of the baits, and some of the baits are very cultured. And with that in mind, a lot of the ingredients have been tailored to be, pre-digested fish meals and things that help the process of fish digesting them. So therefore, we're kind of thinking about boilies, but sometimes just the humble worm can do 10 times what any boilie can do in the right situation. Or maggots are an amazing thing, at the right time of year. We know that. But when is the right time of year?
Yeah.
When is the right time of year? Why just suddenly stop using maggots when the summer comes? Okay, the silverfish are more lively, but quite often you can feed them off and you can have some staggering results. So the old neglected tiger nuts, how many people genuinely use tiger nuts as much as they should? They're an amazing bait, fabulous. There's so many different things out there that we could do. It doesn't have to be what brand you with and be a slave to a boilie brand. Of course, that all works, and it's nice to do that and feel part of a community and doing something. But I've never been shackled by these constraints on the bait front. It's always been I suppose it's because of the era that I'm from that we experimented extensively, because there was no sort of rules. It was like, I've caught them on broad beans, butter beans, baked beans, moth beans, mung beans, kidney beans, you name it. I've tried it and caught on it. I've used cubes of potato.
Classic
that
potato.
Are boiled,
yeah,
par-boiled, so it's quite soft, but just enough to stay on the hook, and we were side hooking in them days, caught tons of fish on that. So it wasn't a full, big, stupid spud like they used to use, But I know it sounds ridiculous, but there's so many things that are still possibly viable that we've all but forgot about, And I'm that sort of old stickler that likes experimenting and messing, because, again, if carp don't associate with some of these things with danger, and you've got a whole new thing out there that's been all but forgotten about, you've got a huge edge.
Yeah.
Some of the time you might be pissing up the wrong tree. I've done that loads of times, and it's absolutely shit and useless. But I do. But when you hit that rich vein of form and that little nugget that does it for you, and inevitably it'll be something that's not just a flash in the pan. You can take it to loads of waters and it'll be like, whoa, I didn't expect this, but I'll take it. It's a bonus, And that's my kind of thoughts on bait, really. It's super open-mindedness, and don't be led by. There's no rules. No one's got any set rules. There's some basic formulas that we've learned over time that kind of work, but one man can have success doing one thing. I mean, John Baker, I've noticed he's been doing these podcasts and things, and he recommends using super low levels of flavours. He's a man I've got plenty of time for. I've known him for a long time, since the early 80s. But I know you can do that as well. Of course you can. But I know that when I tried comparison tests off my own back, when I was doing the singles, and food for that matter, why has the industry made, bait flavour companies are out there for a reason. Imagine if you were buying boiled sweets and there was no flavour in them, they'd taste shit. I'm going to get some Uncle Joe's mint balls, and it's just sucking a bit of nothingness with no taste in it. I'm not buying them again. It's a little bit like that, and I think there's optimum levels for everything, but fish are different. Liquids tend to have a different signature in the liquid gas, which is water. So the molecules react different than air. So, it's not always the fact that even though fish have evolved and they've got super smart, evolved senses of taste with the lateral line and all the rest of it, they can detect sound, motion. They've got an amazing olfactory system, probably 10 times as any human at least, let's put it that way. They've had to because they're in water. It's not as efficient as carrying smells as air. So therefore it's got certain constraints on it. So if you're using a single hook bait and you've got no flavour in it, you're really going to struggle, especially if it's not a visual bait.
Yeah.
The fish are virtually going to have to stumble across it, and you've got no freebies in to sort of enhance the situation. You're kind of like pissing in the wind a bit. So you need to think, I'm here. It's like a needle in a haystack. It's like a single cherry in the middle of a field.
Yeah.
As opposed to, a patch of cherries. It's not going to catch your attention. So smell is a great thing. So if you start going down that avenue of saying, don't need hardly any, but of course it works. When it depends on the size of the water, a lot of different factors. I'm not saying anyone's wrong or right. It's just my thoughts on it are a little bit different. That's all.
Talk to me. You said there a couple of key things. Experimentation. Now, I know from talking to you, you are not one, even if you've got something going right, to just sit there, put that on all 3 rods and happy days, I'm done, I'm catching. There's always something inherently within you looking for we'd probably call it an edge, but looking for the next edge or the next thing that's going to bring bites quicker. Talk to me about how that actually works for you on the bank. How do you organise that? Because for you, it's quite scientific, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, I realised a long time ago that through the singles again, I'm sorry to keep going back on that. I know it's old news, but it was very relevant at the time because it was so profound. The unique situation where I could fast track, it was so, I had it to myself, I could fast track the results and think, wow, this is phenomenal. I'm getting that much quick information. I was getting that many bites and that much action that I could afford to mess.
And we're talking about the spell when you were on Redsmere, yeah?
Yeah, that was 82.
82, yeah.
Yeah, using the fluros, the singles. And what I very quickly found out was that the white, on a single hook bait, it's almost impossible to get a bite at night. It's a dodo. So what you're doing is you're just wasting the night to have them sat in the situation, in a feeding zone, maybe in a sanctuary or over a bloodworm bed, where the fish will feed in the morning, typically a morning feeding spell. So you'd waste the night rather than thrashing them out at prime feeding time in the morning. So you'd sacrifice the night to have them in situ for the morning feeding spell. Oh, that was the theory at the time. And it did work. But nighttime was an absolute dodo. And then I got the white dye first. I got Duncan Kay to get me that Dayglow white. And I had a suspicion that would change everything with a view to the nighttime bites. Oh, it did. It did.
What are we talking? Give me a context there. So there's obviously been jackal activity through the night. You've put these on. Well,
what had happened was, with any other colour, oranges or yellows or anything like that, I was using blues and, reds. No bites at night. I mean, literally no bites. And as soon as I started using the white, I started getting not many, right, but a tangible difference. I was getting like, over a period of the season, I maybe get 5 or 6 bites at night as opposed to 0 on the other colours. And then when I started baiting up with white freebies. Oh, different ball game then. Obviously there was more to catch their attention, and night times were electrifying sometimes. Whereas if I changed the same bait, same flavours, same attractors, same base mix, everything, and did any other or natural colours, it wasn't as good. And I did a talk at the BCSG about this, which I used to go to regular, and there was one of the members particularly was interested in this, and he caught a PB first time out when he used the white baits in the dark, and that was in the very early days, in the 80s, and then it became a reoccurring theme. So it was a worthwhile tactic, and I don't think that will have changed.
No.
So, there is some mileage in it, which was that thinking was why I went to Chris at Enterprise and said, I need to do a glow in the dark sweet corn.
Yeah.
That was exactly for the same reason.
That night time, maximising that night.
Yeah, and it's still relevant, and it's all but forgotten about, really. And this ain't no advert for Enterprise or anything. I've got nothing. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's just interesting. I think that I've done a lot of sea fishing, wreck fishing, and things.
Yeah.
And black under a certain depth, under 80 feet, black stands out the most, same as the black on the zigs. Because the fish are normally above the wreck and they see the black, red, ironically, they're called red gill sand eels, but the black ones were easily the best because of the silhouette again.
Yeah.
Being black. Everything turns black ish under a certain depth, but real true black stands out more, strangely enough. I've also found that with hook baits that black is particularly very good.
Yeah.
But so underused.
Definitely.
But where I'm going with this is like, why wouldn't you? You're not going to scare fish by adding something that's more visual to your hook bait. I remember, I'll give you an example. Getting back onto my spot, I was fishing hemp on Redsmere with my mate Mark Burgess, and we were playing a bit of a game, actually. We were trying to keep the spot that we were baiting up secret, because obviously it was so effective. The fish would get on the hemp and they wouldn't touch anything else.
Yeah, preoccupied.
So they were there, and it was just like lit up with fizzes everywhere. It was pretty obvious, but we chose an area where we got shallow water that runs into deep water, so that we got the best of all seasons. So you could fish either up the shelf or down the shelf in the deeper water. That was easy access, but an unpopular swim that no one really fancied. And we used to choose a swim and do this, and put all the hemp in, and then make a big show. I'd make a big show in the day of putting a marker out and spomming gravel and water out to a place that was absolutely shit, where there was no bait.
Good edge.
Because we couldn't keep the swim. Then people would see what we were doing and go in the duff area. Then they'd start putting the hemp in there. They would catch eventually, but we'd still steal a march on them on the main area. But you could always tell when the fish were on the hemp, because the mallards were feeding on the husks on the surface. And then there's a lot of fizzes, and that would give the game away, But what I used to do, we had a marker with an isotope on it, and we'd let it up in the dark and bait up at night. But we'd pull it back down to the bottom with a big light on it, sometimes a starlight, and we'd be getting runs while the starlight was right next to the hook baits. It really didn't scare them.
No.
Which is interesting, because when you think, a lot of the guys now, they're talking wraps all the time.
Of course, yeah.
Which is ultra accurate and specific. We know that. And we're thinking, yeah, what... I kind of, it gets on my tits. It still riles me a bit when everyone's talking wraps. I have to do a mental calculation all the time because I'm old school, I'm old dinosaur. I think, what is that in yards? And then I have to do a quick mental calculation. Oh, right, so that's 200 yards, or that's 160, and so on. But some people know it chapter and verse.
Yeah, of course.
I'm fishing 12 wraps out, and they expect me to know what that is. So I'm going, oh, right, yeah, okay, yeah. So I'm thinking, for fuck's sake, and you try to work it all out. And because I'm used to talking in yards.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's all well and good. So you've got, it's pitch black.
Yeah.
You've got a little tiny hole in the weed, and you want to fish at 22 wraps. So you get a run in the night off your spot. Before it's gone dark, you've got it all off. You've got 3 rods lasered out to your 24 wraps, yeah? So you get a bite in the night, and you think, right, so you get your wrapping sticks or you've got your marker and you clip up again, but there's no trees on the horizon, it's pitch black, and you think, so you're frothing it to a foam. Well, I just have the marker out with a starlight on and let it right up on your spot so that you're right bang on it again.
Would you leave that marker out there?
Yeah, it's the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, okay.
And a lot of people, they'd be, oh no, it's another line going in the swim. And well, what would you rather do? Be sat in a giant weed bed or a load of shit? Or would you rather get it back on your clear spot again? That starlight isn't going to scare those fish. Or an isotope on it. But I've got something I've invented for even better for getting back on your spot. That's a different story, that now.
Don't leak that one, mate.
No. So you literally can get immediately back on your spot. So you just wrap up, and then this works every time. So that's a little invention I've made. You can do it with every rod as well.
A Warwickism, mate, that is what I'm going to call it.
Yeah, so that's how my mind works. It's a little bit sort of, the problem exists, so it needs an answer. That's the way I like to think, I know we've gone off at all kind of crazy tangents here, but...
that's the way I wanted to do it, Frank.
Yeah.
Because from speaking to you, if we just talk about chapters of fishing, I like the insight behind it, mate. That's what's you. Yeah,
I mean, I find it all fascinating. I mean, I like to try and do things a little bit organised.
Yeah.
And make notes and things. I mean, Sean Harrison, I've got a lot of time for Sean. He's a good old boy, and he keeps these amazing diaries, and he logs down everything. And he's almost gone back to nature, Sean. I watch his sort of Instagram and that, and he's sleeping on the floor.
It's like Ray Mears, isn't it?
Yeah, he's like Ray Mears. Yeah, he's another guy I would find fascinating. And he has got that streak to him, He's proper old school and interesting, and bloody good angler as well, Sean.
Yeah.
But he's an avid note keeper. And studies the weather and every aspect. And I bet them diaries he's kept have caught him so many fish, because your memory's never as good as you think it's going to be.
No.
So it's always worth keeping diaries and notes about key things, which gets me back onto, like, I know I've probably said it before, but when you're fishing, if you keep note of all recipes that you make for hook baits, and because your memory's never good enough, so keep notes of the weather on the day, the wind direction. It's fascinating to look back on, and then patterns emerge.
Yeah.
I keep koi around the back in my pond, and I've learned so much from keeping them rascals. And I watch where they go. They've got one particular place where they go in the winter, and it's the place that gets the sun the most. So it's the northern corner, because most of the sun, or it's the northeast, most of the sun is hitting that when the sun's low in the sky, is hitting that northerly shelf. And they always get a shelf under a weed bed. If there's a weed bed there, they want to be underneath it, so they can just feel safe and come out, because the water's very clear. They can come out into the shallows and feed on any shelves, which is half the given depth. So they want to be in the northeastern corner on the first available shelf where there's weed. That's going to be your prime first port of call on your lake, regardless of anything else. So it's keeping notes, and that last winter I had an amazing winter, and it was from taking note of them critters. And when they were sort of lethargic, you would generally struggle. When they suddenly pepped up a little bit, it always coincided with the best time to go. They were like a thermometer of what was going to happen,
Talk to me about your success. Winter, just gone.
Oh, well, I got in a syndicate. A mate of mine got this lake. It's an old Cheshire mere, and very long time, good mate of mine. I met him when he was probably 16. I was probably 19 on Cape Thornall. He got some money, invested it probably 20 years ago, and bought this lake that was very deep, full of snags. Didn't have hardly any stock in it. it was it was a bit of a ball breaker.
Yeah.
And he got it and quietly got on with it and stocked these amazing, beautiful commons in there. Beautiful strain, good strain of fish. Put them in at, £3-4 pound. Quietly got on with it. It was one of them syndicates that not many people wanted to join because it was tarnished by the awkwardness of it previously and that. And he never telegraphed it to me. He just let it all go on. And, the syndicate boys just fed the fish and do as they do. And a particularly good strain of fish. And then he invited me to go over as a guest. And I said, yeah, I'll come with you. I walked on. I thought, oh my God, my eyes just come out on stalks. Like it's one of them where you go, like a overacting where your mouth's open, your eyes are like that. I thought, shit, it's like Redsmere times 10.
Yeah.
And just to die for. And I thought, wow, this is a bit of me, this. And it's like dead man's shoes to get in it. Anyway, with this COVID tragedy and all the rest of it, there was one of the guys who was a builder with a young family, and he couldn't afford the ticket. So I said, listen, even though half the season had gone, if there was any chance, I'd buy the ticket and pay the whole thing. Well, he suggested it to Andy, so I said, yeah, absolutely. So I joined, and and therein grew to love it and had some fantastic fishing. It's up and down like a yo-yo, like a moonscape. It's down 30 feet up to 2.5 feet. There's all kinds of.
How big is it, Frank?
I suppose about 6 acres. Not big.
And stock-wise?
It's hard to say. I think it's probably a decent head of stock. I think it's about probably 100 fish in there.
Okay.
So that's more than enough. Anyway, I got cracking on there and just did things my way. And
did things my way.
Sounds like a Frank Sinatra thing.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. Well,
what we saying?
I don't want to go into too much detail about it because I'm still fishing there, and it was like, I was just enjoying using the bait I was doing, and I noticed that a lot of the guys were very particle orientated on there. So I wanted to use boilies, but I wanted to use them chopped. So I was using a lot of chopped boilies, and I use a lot of liquids. I'm very keen on liquids when I'm carp fishing for the same reason, to draw attention to the food. I like it to nag them, and it's obvious that I've said it again. I'm probably rehashing it, but if you can have your mind elsewhere, and in the morning you get up and you're fishing, and all you're thinking of is, right, what am I going to do with the rods? Do a recast, do them again, and then some bugger on the opposite bank's suddenly doing a big fry up with bacon and egg. The wind's blowing in your direction. All of a sudden, you're there with a packet of quavers and a pot noodle, and you're thinking, bastard, I'd kill for bacon and egg at the moment, because you can smell it and you're thinking, shit. But it suddenly gets you hungry. And that's what liquids do in the bait. The water column moves, it's in a state of constant flux, and it sends the message like the wind to the fish. So, you don't mean to tell me that boilies that have been skinned with albumins and stuff are sending out a big message, especially if you're using very low levels of flavours and things like that. The fish have to stumble across it to know it's there. So I like a big food signal coming off. That's why them goos work, that my mate Ian does. It's not an advert for them. I know they work. I was always very aware that kind of thing could be super effective, and it bloody is as well. So I like the hydroslates, the natural things like L030 was a beauty, and that and some of those kind of salmon extracts, and I love those that are more water soluble rather than oil based things. I mean, oil based things have the time, especially if you're surface fishing. But some of the, like the old stuff that amino stuff that old Chilts used to do, the Ambio, that was another good one. The liver.
Yeah, they tend
liquid liver, Minamino.
They tend to get down though, don't they? In terms
of but they're very good in winter.
Yeah.
So Minamino still stands up to this very day. I still use it when I can. So them kind of things were brilliant. So I guess I went fishing with my mate Mark Tierney. He got a limited winter ticket, and Mark had fished maybe 5 or 6 times on there with us. You know, he got because of the lockdown. There weren't so many people going fishing on the syndicate. Yeah. So my mate who runs it was worried about there being a lack of presence on there. So he did a limited winter ticket, which doesn't exist anymore. So my mate came on, and he was new to it in the winter, and it had no track record of doing winter fish. Very little. Hence, it was dead. You know, no one was going on in the syndicate, even though it's some good fish in there. So I said to Mark, listen, let's get on there and give it a go. I said, I don't care if somewhere's got no winter form ever. Don't care how deep it is, how shallow it is. It's there. Rules are there to be broken. I'm going to go on it and do it. So I started having them. And then Mark came on, and he was doing not dissimilar to me, but he wasn't using the volume of liquids I was doing. So I'm giving it away already. I'm getting sucked into it.
I've not.
So he's looking at what I was doing, and his eyes pops out, and he went, fucking hell, Frank. He says, it's about 30 quid worth of liquids you've just done in that. I says, mate, I don't go to the pub drinking. I don't go buying extravagant clothes or drive a fancy car or anything like that. And I says, and I'm sponsored. And I says, but even if I had to pay through the nostrils for this, I'd still pay for it. I says, so it's going in. He took a note out of that, because I had a 33 and a 24 that session. And he's a real good mate of mine. You know, I've seen him grow up since being a young fella, and his dad Phil's a very, very special friend of mine. So, you know, I says, listen, mate, get yourself in here, because I found this spot that was particularly working. I says, get your ass in here. Let's get some liquids going. So he got the liquids going. One of them had garlic in it, so I'm giving a bit away again there. And, you know, it's very pungent. So it sends out a huge message. And we were putting a lot of bait in, I'll tell you that. For winter, you'd die if you knew. Putting a lot of bait in.
Give me a figure.
No, I don't want to go into details. But enough. All small. Nothing big. Okay. Nothing big. Nothing bigger than a 10 milli, apart from the hook bait. With lots of liquid in. And the idea, we'll put corn in, put some maggot in. Put some micro pellets in there, tons of liquid, and some chopped worm. I was using the Willie's worm soil.
Yeah.
Because I like the smell of the impregnated with worm. So that was going in quite big amounts. So a lot of it was like all about producing the attraction and smell. The key things that you know that the fish would want to eat. And the idea was to nag them shitless. And a lot of guys get impatient. Yeah. And they think, maybe I've got the wrong spot. Maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe I need to recast every 10 minutes. Need to do this, need to do that. I was confident that I'd work out the depths and the position due to studying my koi and previous experience of other waters. I kind of knew what depths I was looking at, and I knew the drill. Now you get I'm not having a go at other people, but typically you see other people and they were leaving small patches of bait here, there, and everywhere, like a minefield.
Yeah.
So the fish had every chance of getting weathered bait that was in the wrong spot, that was no longer had a hook bait on it. It wasn't the one for me, that. So I wanted to, and there's an element of silverfish, even in the winter, you can still get them. So I wanted to, it's called nagging the fish. You have to nag them in the winter. It's almost like, you know, again, programming the fish's instincts. If they know, if there's nothing there, there's nothing for them to worry about. But if it's there, it's going to piss them off, because they're going to be thinking, oh, do you know what? If I don't get in there and get it, someone else is going to get it, or the birds or anything. So it kind of triggers that behaviour where they go, right, I'm going to sample a bit. And then once one starts, the others will think, oh, he's in there. And I use something that I've learned from the koi again. I plume the water up with Mediclay. Now, I keep koi.
Yeah.
And I treat the water with a Japanese clay.
Yeah.
It's about £14 for a bag. You get it on eBay. There's many different types, and it's very medicinal for them and keeps them in good condition. But they kind of love it. They go mad for it.
There's the minerals in it and stuff,
yeah,
isn't it?
It's all trace elements. And it's got all the key things in there that they need for the health. which bovines do as well, by the way. A lot of cows, besides the salt licks, they kind of they'll slurp on mud with minerals in.
Yeah.
Most animals will do that. So you put the Mediclay in, and it's particularly good for them. Anyway, what I noticed as a byproduct is I've never seen anything colour the water so much.
Yeah.
It's like an explosion of colour. You put it in, and the whole of your koi pond is like, whew, it's like mud.
Yeah, smokes up everywhere.
Smokes it everywhere.
Yeah.
The smoke effect is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Now, most fish think, oi, it's clouded to buggery. Someone's in there having a beano.
Oh, Roger's giving it the big and I need some.
Yeah, I want some of that. So it works all year round. So I've given a bit away again, I don't know. So the Mediclay, it not only does the fish good, but it smoke screens to hell the swim. And it gives off a huge thing. And then you start combining that with your liquids.
I was going to say, that's a good carrier to get it down, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it works for zigs as well. When you're slopping with zigs, the Mediclay is ridiculous. So you can combine it with some of the liquids that I was talking about earlier that I alluded to. You've got yourself a huge signal going off to the other fish, and they come in. And anyway, what happened was, getting back to the winds, I had a 40-pound common, which I predicted on the 16th of January. There's a couple of big fish in there that I particularly wanted to catch, and there was one called what's he called now? Black spot. It's the biggest mirror in the lake. And I says to Mark, one of us is going to catch this, because Mark started catching. First time I put him in the swim, and we upped the ante a little bit, and he got on the liquids and started doing it, burning a bit of dough to do it. He had three 20s, and he was buzzing. Yeah, he was buzzing because he'd done a good few trips, and then it suddenly clicked. And then I said to him, mate, what's not to like about this? We're having him in the fiercest of weather. I mean, the weather we went through, we smashed the ice with the boat 4 and 5 hours at a time.
Jeez.
And we had blizzards with 2 feet of snow. We got the van stuck multiple times. My leg set on fire one day.
Your leg set on fire?
Yeah, that's true. I got one of them, them snug pack salopettes.
Yeah.
With the jacket. I treated myself to them for the winter, and I was sat with a hot water bottle under my top because it was -4. We'd broke the ice. With this stroke that I had, I couldn't feel my left leg and my arm. It was just like numb, like I'd had an anaesthetic. I was that cold. I was sat next to the fire with new snug pack gear on.
Oh no!
And I was looking out over the lake, watching the water, and I got the cooker going right near my feet. Next minute, I smell a burning smell. I look down, and my leg's on fire, and
oh, you beauty!
I've got a big scar on it underneath, and then it's burnt and melted it to my leg, and I couldn't feel a damn thing. And so I padded it out. I was more pissed off about damaging the salopettes because they were 110 quid. Anyway, I've repaired them and stitched them all up. It looks like Jed Clampett's done it.
Go on the Northerner.
Yeah. Anyway, so we did untold effort, and it's an ordeal when you're doing 16 hours of darkness, and we did it relentlessly. And then Mark give me a call. I couldn't be there. It's got a 48-hour limit on it.
All right.
He said, mate, I've done it. I've had black spot. And I said, how big? And he said, it's the first time it had gone 40. So I went down seeing it, and my eyes nearly popped out of my head. I mean, I'll show you this fish.
Yeah.
My eyes were out on stalk, so I went, that's one of the most amazing fish I've ever seen in my life. It looks about 55 pounds, this fish. It's a pure monster. It's just an incredible looking fish. I caught that this year. I did manage to catch it. Yeah. I had it just under 40, but it doesn't matter. I had it 39.6, but the photos are ridiculous. But marks in the winter are something to behold.
Winter's mega, innit? Yeah.
And then I had some other good ones. And then Mark gives me another phone call, and he said, you're not going to believe this. He said, I've got this common, he says, and it's £40 And he says, you've got to see this. So I went down and never seen it before. And do you know what? we think, looking from the syndicate, all the pictures and everything, when we finally told everyone that we'd done this, because we weren't going to get a microphone out and say, guys, we're having some big uns, get your ass on here. Because we just kept it quiet.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? Because we're doing all the hard graft and all the nightmare work.
The dough, yeah,
exactly. And all the effort. Why would you say, it's fishy, get your ass down here, guys? You wouldn't do it anyway. No. So some of the syndicate members were a little bit pissed off when they heard, but I thought, well, the fish are in here. Why do that?
Well, it's your prerogative to go and catch them, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of nice guys in there, And there was one other fella that put a lot of time in as well, and he had a tench. So we were getting it right. So you knew from that. Well, he had a tench to show for the whole campaign. But great guy as well. But I think he was sticking to boilies, full size boilies, which again, I was using one of them Ridge Monkey choppers and chopping everything super fine. Great bit of kit that if you've not got one, I suggest you it's not an advert, by the way. It's one of the best bits of kit I've got. I use it continually because of that reason. Small particles and that fine feeding, so you're not overfeeding. They can digest the bloody stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, where was I going with this? I suppose that was just the start of it. I've continued to do the same thing without upping the size of anything, and it's just worked. I've had 2130s and 340s this last year.
Yeah, that's great going, isn't it?
For Cheshire, it's not bad.
That's ridiculous for Cheshire.
Yeah, for Cheshire, it's bizarre.
Gem.
I think. Well, I can't think of how you would ever do that in 10 lifetimes normally in Cheshire.
No.
There's nothing you can do about that.
No.
But where I was going with it, that common that Mark caught, he'd never been out before.
Never been out.
No. But ironically, my son, it has been out since, and my son, Guy, caught it. I took him as a guest and let me take him, and he had it down in weight at 38. But can you imagine that?
What a guesty that is!
Yeah, he had 2 PBs, so it's an amazing place. You know? He had a 35, 12, I think it was, and I said, mate, I think it could get better. I've got a feeling you're going to get one of the 40s. And he had it, but it was down in weight at 38. Just before we packed up, I thought, Jesus Christ.
You and your feelings, mate. We'll talk about that aspect of you later, mate.
Yeah, so it's very strange,
Bait-wise, I was going to ask you, going back, colour. Yeah. Talk to me about colour in your thoughts and experiences about the difference that makes. We talked about flavourings, liquids, and that aspect. But colour, you talked about the white baits at night.
Yeah.
Daytime, is it significant?
Yeah, it is. One of the most amazing colours I've ever used, as I alluded to earlier, is black. It's just that to get a true black in a bait, it's very difficult. They're normally dark purple or blue.
Yeah.
But there are some, it's almost like carbon black. There's a type of black dye you can get. And if you make your hook baits, particularly your freebies and everything, jet black, the bottom of any lake is never black. So black's really silhouetted and stands out very well. And they don't associate it with danger. So it's particularly good. Same with green, that drab olive green. I used to make baits with a lot of kelp in and Japanese seaweed. And the baits would turn out really quite green. And wow, game changer, really spectacular. I notice everyone wants to have like the old Robin Red type fish meals and everything, but I would always prefer very black or green baits if you could get away with it, because they don't associate it with any problem. It's different again, and it's sort of why wouldn't you? I think it's not being different for different's sake. It actually does work. And I found for hook baits that if you're in typical when we were fishing in Oxford, on linear, in the weed, that onion weed, pink was head and shoulders above any other colour. Pink was when you've got it when there's a weedy situation. Pink really, for a single hook bait, was outstanding. White for night time. But I mean, white's done to death. Everybody kind of flogs white hook baits now, don't they?
What about that aspect of colour? Do you think a colour blows over time? Do you think it's associated if it's been fished a lot, for example, on a specific venue and done well with?
Yes and no. I mean, there's going to be a certain process where it's been flogged all through the season. I mean, at the start of every spring, they tend to sort of re-trip and, it's almost like they've forgotten the flogging they've had from the previous season because they've overwintered and been left. They're not feeding as heavy, so they've inevitably not been caught as much. And they're lethargic and they're not, they're not as switched on somehow. So you tend to get them kind of baits, the visual baits will work almost like they've not fell for that one again. But they do. So I think as the season wears on, I just think you kind of think, how long is it going to go for this? But of course, it's like saying, well, why don't food baits blow? They're eating food baits. Why don't brown? Why don't they get sick of brown? Because they're getting caught.
Do you think they do? Have you ever had an experience of food baits blowing? A specific boilie or specific flavour pattern? No,
not really. I think it's more in the angler's mind.
Do you?
Yeah. I think you can easily, through, because you might not be getting your location right, the easiest thing to blame is the bait sometimes and think, the bait's knackered, I need to change baits. And then I did a tutorial with a guy once. I don't do these things much because I just can't stand taking money off decent working class blokes normally, that are desperate for a bit of info. And here's me trying to, it doesn't suit me. It doesn't sit well in my mind. So I did it for a little bit when I needed some extra income because I was up against it at that particular time in my life. And I got a guy turned up and he was similar age to me and he was quite new to it. We're only doing 24 hours. He brought 3 wheelbarrow loads down of different baits from different companies. And I said, mate, what the fuck's all this? It was like a food mountain.
Yeah.
He said, I've been on that and I've been on that. I've tried it all. He said, I've been struggling. I says, well, so you think that just there's a some kind of golden ticket out here amongst all this lot? I says, all you've done is roasted your own knackers by confusing yourself, not giving anything a real chance. And he had 3 of the most popular brands on each rod. I mean, okay, that's what you might turn to if you were a novice. And you're thinking, well, they're the 3 most popular.
Yeah.
I'll put them out and see which one I get a bite on, But it was the basics he was missing. All the basic stuff like knowing how much bait to put in, when to put a bit in and when not to. Looking at naturals as well, he just, everything revolved around a boilie. So I showed him about using worms, lobworms and stuff, and then opened his eyes a little bit to being versatile. And we became great mates, and he totally calmed it down and got it. But I think a lot of people probably are like that when they take up carpfish. Even more experienced anglers, they don't think of their own performance as being the problem. It's the bait.
Yeah, there's something to pin it on, isn't there?
Yeah, and it's like...
Or rigs, it could be the same, can't it?
Yeah, rigs as well. A lot of people have paranoia about rigs.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you've got a good food that the fish want to pick up, you can get away with really very basic rigs. We kind of... Any experienced angler knows that. It'd be the food... if you've got a bait there that they don't want to pick up, you're knackered, innit? It doesn't matter what rig you've got.
Yeah.
If they're not picking it up on a regular basis, because no matter what rigs you get, they're still going to eject most of them, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There's going to be at least a 50% success rate of blowing them out. That's even if it's the most optimistic angler. I think it's somewhere in the region like 5 to 1.
Yeah.
Maybe worse that you're hooking these fish. That's with any kind of rig, but you have to have them pick it up 5 times for them to blow it out 5 times. And if they're not picking it up at all, or picking up the once and going, don't like this, or they're not interested in what you're doing, the rig's immaterial. Whereas you can put a very basic standard hair rig out there, And if you've got something particularly attractive, it might be peanuts or something like that really switched them on, and they really want to eat them. You know, if they're picking them up multiple times and they're going mad on it, you're in business.
Yeah.
So my philosophy has always been have a very small go-to setup of rigs that are bulletproof. You know, super sharp hooks I like. I don't care what anyone says about sharpening hooks. I think sharpening them's the way forward.
Even on the mares with like bottoms where they can corrode and stuff. Have you ever had that issue?
Oh yeah, I get that all the time. I have that issue all the time. But I mean, don't get me wrong. I've got certain go-to hooks that are good out of the packet.
Yeah.
And if I encounter that where there's that trade-off point where sharpening becomes counterproductive because the dulling is too much to put up with, then I'll go to straight out of the packet. But 9 times out of the 10, like old Jim Shelley, I was watching some of his podcasts and that, you know, the lengths he goes to sharpen his hooks, fair play to him. He knows it.
Yeah.
A lot of people know it. You know, that have been doing it a long time, even a short time, that are effective. Why wouldn't you want it as sharp as possible? There comes a point where you get a certain type of hook and you can probably over sharpen it and ruin that. I mean, I heard it about them Cora things, what they called Camcora things. They're only good for one fish. Well, what do you want? 10 fish for whatever it costs for a hook? I don't actually. I think you shouldn't be caring about that. You know, I mean, you want the bite. Why do you want something that you can use 15 times or something? That's bullshit. It's just being lazy. I think the amount of money you spend, the day ticket price is 30 odd quid for 24 hours. You're spending all your money on your bait. You're planning your time off. You might only have 3 weeks a year off at work, your holidays. So you go down there, you're going, oh, I'll just put an hook out that might not be sharp enough just because, I might not be getting 10 fish out of one hook. It's false economy. I think, you know, I don't get it, me. I'd rather have the best bait, everything as good as possible that I can do. And then you've only got yourself to blame, you know. So the key points to me are you either turn up and get in a swim or an area that's got some recent fall, because most busy waters, you don't get that luxury of walking around and finding the fish like you used to be able to do. Not many waters you can do that. So the next best thing is to keep your head to the ground, hear about where's fishing. I know it sounds shit, that, but get yourself in a hot swim and bollocks what anyone else thinks. Get your best bait out, sharpest hooks, be super efficient, not overdo it straight away and fill it in, build the swim. That's always been my philosophy. But if you've got that luxury, I don't even set up on other places until I found the fish. You know, and them bloody drones are something else, aren't they?
They're an edge.
Oh, you know, it's no surprise that you see these guys that are making the films. They've got the film crew with them, and then they go, "Oh yeah, we just put the drone up to have a quick look at the lake and all that. Yeah, just to find the fish before you set the cameras up and get on. Why wouldn't you? I mean, you know, they're so cheap now. I just bought one, 110 quid. Treated myself for Christmas, and you're thinking, it's like Big Brother, you know, the whole location thing.
It's done, isn't it?
Stevie Wonder could do the business with them things, you know. So, and it does take a genius to learn how to use them. So you can send one of them up, hover it above the pads or wherever you are. Oh yeah, they're in there, laughing. Then baited spoons off old Nashy, shit one of them out straight on the head. Oh, I've caught one. You know, where's it going to end? But I mean,
carp fishing completed it, mate.
Yeah, I mean, but. Why not be in that club? You know, if you're struggling, just think about it. Use some of these edges and just get on with it. There's no reason to struggle. You know, is what I'm saying. And I mean, good God, I go off at tangents, don't I?
I love it, Frank, mate. I just let it run. I love it, mate. It's cool.
I do. I get on one of these sort. My mind just drifts here and there.
It's good, mate. That is Frank Warwick. That's what it's about.
The viewers will probably go, I can't understand this bloke. 1 minute he's talking about this, and next minute it's drones.
If I'm a viewer of this, having had a lot of conversations with you, you need a little notepad, and then every now and again, when the old gem comes out, you just note it down in your happy days.
Well, I guess that'll do me if some of the guys that are watching this sort of just pick up a little bit of something that might put them some fish on the bank or give them a train of thought that leads to something else. I mean, most of my best captures have come from a small gem that's sort of like a light bulb's gone. I thought, a eureka moment, you think, fucking hell, why didn't I think of this sooner? It's lit up and it's just gone on and on and on and on, and it's caught me tons of fish, and I've gone, this is easy, you know.
Talk to me about some of your notable, if you like, light bulb moments in terms of baiting that have really, really worked. I specifically know of Acton Burnell, where you smashed it up with a bit of a baiting and, to be fair, a sort of a tactical edge, didn't you?
Yeah, well, what happened was I never thought I'd fish on Acton Burnell.
Yeah.
And I remember... Rob Ailes, I've got a lot of time for him, actually. Hell of a character.
A top lad, Rob.
He'd set that lake up, and, you know, it had quite a bit of a who's who of carp fishing on it, you know. Kevin Maddox was on it. Max Cottis, Dennis McFetterick, John Baker. I could go on. There was just tons of well-known anglers on it. Most of the BCSG Iraqi were on there. For a northern-ish water, it was phenomenal, some of the fish coming out. And, you know, there was a bit of chit-chat about the fish and all the rest of it. And someone says to me, would you ever fish there? I said, I'm not sure whether it would be a bit of me, that, you know. And there was a bit of talk about whether the fish were legit and that, I suppose. And then, Rob Ailes ran me up and he goes, are you questioning the origins of my fish? I said, no, not really. I says, you know, just... So it's just been a bit of chit-chat about it. You got to have saying that. And he says, well, I've got albums with them all in at low doubles when they were stocked and that. He says, you come and fish it. I'm going to give you a challenge. Come and fish it and see if you can catch anything that I've not got in the album at small weights. I thought, bloody hell. Well, he's being open there, so why not? So I thought, bollocks to it, I'm going to do it. So I went down, but I've been fishing Redsmere and some other waters, and I've been using the method. And it's bizarre, the method. It's like, how many, if you used to go on, let's say, pick somewhere I like, Bluebell Lakes, when it's busy, bank holiday weekend.
Yeah.
So there might be, I don't know, 300 anglers on there or something crazy. 200, I don't know. I've never done a head count. But there's going to be a substantial amount.
Yeah, fair few.
And I was to say, right, guys, rods in. Let's see what we're up to. I bet you could count on 2 fingers how many people would be using the method.
It'd be no one, mate.
I reckon nobody.
No.
Now, how beautiful is that? Now, I fish Parco della Brenta in Italy. Right, I'm just giving an example here. And probably the thing that's caught more fish on that lake than anything else by a country mile is the method. And they're big fish. You know, it's got 80s in and stuff like that. And the method is ridiculously good and successful. And we use the method with the pellets, the Versatility pellets, which are amazing pellet, by the way, that the Italians feed the fish with. So it's like a staple diet that the fish have been brought up in before they've been moved to the bigger lake.
Okay, so it's their
so it's their staple diet.
Yeah.
So that might account for the fact that it's particularly successful on there. But I use the method because of pure neglect. I mean, Martin Gibbonson, Jim's brother, he's always been mad on the method, and he's championed it and that, you know. And he swears by it. I don't think he ever uses much else because he's been so successful in his own right with it, from what I hear. And I had that same experience with it from doing a bit of match fishing and seeing how they use the feeders as an option to solid bags. So I was using my own method mixes and stuff, and I I thought, right. And old Ailsey, he showed us round Acton, and he said at the time, Mainline were doing Active 8, and that was the going bait on there. Okay. It was the sort of main bait that people were putting in. All you need to do, Frank, he said, 2 markers out, 10 kilo of Active 8, 3 rods on it, with an 18mm bottom bait on each rod, sit and wait. And I thought, I'd rather cut my own throat and hang myself. No disrespect to Mainline, right? It was nothing to do with that. It was the fact that he was telling everybody to do it, and they're all doing it like clones. They're all feeding his fish. No wonder we're getting massive. So I was thinking, is that it? I can't be having that. So I went on and used the method. So with the method, I go through a little process. What I do is I use it as a single ball about the size of a tennis ball. So it'll just be a 2 ounce, typically a 2 ounce fox feeder. They're a very good method feeder. I'll use anything but a boilie as the hook bait.
Okay.
I really don't want a boilie on there most of the time. I'll use a tiger nut or a chopped Brazil, or I'll use a piece of maize or a piece of corn.
Small?
Yeah, small.
Small.
Yeah. And then it's a decision whether I put the hook length in the ball or have it exposed so it falls away from it. In England, I find it's better to have it fall away from it. On the continent, it's best to have it in the ball. They're more aggressive, like at Parko, they want to attack the ball.
Smash the ball, yeah.
Yeah. In England, they don't particularly want to do that. They want it to break down the size of a saucer and the hook bait to fall away from it. So I'll put 2 pieces of dissolving foam on with a stiffish hook link. Like a
stiffish hook link?
Yeah. Not supple.
Whoa, Warwick.
Yeah. So it falls away from it. So generally it'd be a couple of pieces of balanced maize with maize and corn in the method mix. That'd fall away from it. So it's the classic, ooh, is that safe? Oh, there's a piece here that's fell on the edge. I'll take that first. And it was like clockwork. I watched them from up the trees doing it and that. So what I did 1 rod with, I catapulted with a whopper dropper, other balls on top of the method ball that I'd got. And on the 3rd rod, I'd spom a load of freebies in, a load of pellet and corn and all the rest of it. But it was the single ball with the maize, balanced maize that fell away from the ball.
What, over no bait?
Over no bait. Anything I seen that was fizzing or any fish that crashed out, straight on it, bang. I had a spare rod made up with one ready to go. And it totally outfished the others where I'd made a bit of disturbance or was fishing freebies on it.
Yeah.
It was almost like that was just enough
for one bite
to get them a bite when they were browsing and without spooking them. And it was phenomenal. The best I did was 18 fish in a 24-hour period.
18 fish.
Yeah.
Give me an idea of where that, in terms of other people fishing the venue at the time, what was a decent sort of catch rate? Couple of fish a session, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Blinking out.
I had well, I never forget it. I had 56 30s and 640s in one season doing it, and I didn't fish it that much. And it was, I remember Brian Jarrett turning up. He just got in the syndicate, and he came round, and it was just the end of October, and I was fishing the second point, and I got the 3 rods out. And he said, I've been hearing about what you've been doing with this method. He said, I've got all the gear for the method. And he says, I've got chopped Brazils for the hook baits. He was obviously fishing to see what I was up to. And he had a 38 and a 39 while he was stood there.
Oh, you beauty.
And it was freezing. It was really cold, I've got the shots of them and everything. And I remember him going, oh, my God. Well, he went round with his Brazils and that. It didn't work. He blanked.
Did nothing. What were you putting around the method?
There was a lot more to it than
you're not just putting scalded bait around.
No,
there,
well, the best thing that Dynamite Baits ever did, in my opinion, this isn't an advert for them because I don't really care about what they do or whether they sell it or not anymore, but they did a thing called Meter Marine Ground Bait.
Yeah, I remember. In a can?
Yeah, and it was brilliant. It was really brilliant. And I used that in the method. And for whatever reason, it was pretty awesome. And I used a lot of liquid liver. And I was also using brewer's yeast and baker's yeast. So my mix was fermenting and warming up. and it was active.
Active, yeah.
It was very active. So it was actually warm to the touch. In the summer, it was heating up. So it was all going off. And I had Minamino in there, liquid liver. I'd got that Meta Marine. I'd got different pellets. I was using, funny enough, I was using those Active 8 pellets of mainlines because all the guys were putting tons of the boil in, but they weren't using the pellet. So I thought, let's cash in on their baiting up, and I'll use the pellet as the method thing, but in a completely different format.
Yeah.
I was using. I wanted it to break down on the feeder because it's easy to get the ball just sit there and not break down properly.
Yeah, just be literally a lump. Yeah.
So I was using desiccated coconut, ground chum mixers, which fizz and pop and explode. I was using Nectar Blend and Red Factor, which are biscuit-based bird seeds. So the biscuit absorbs water and that pops and fizzes. So it was exploding on the bottom and looking not contrived. If something looks... This is a great thing to tell you. I'm going off at a tangent, but this is all relevant. I was on Redsmere. I've been off there for years, and I ventured back on, and it was dead busy. And I went on the new bank, and I found some fish, and they were all milling about in 2s and 3s. They almost looked like they were going to spawn. It was weedy as buggery. I was on the new bank, and I found this little corner, neglected to hell. No one even bothered with it. It was a smashed platform, some small sort of not poplar trees. Forget what they call the type of tree. Them that break easy if you try and climb them. Oh, I've got a mental block for the name. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I crept through these bushes and was looking at the fish, and I was using the method at the time a lot. And they were in 2s and 3s, and I thought, do you know what? They're not spawning. They're just sort of milling around together. And it was only 2 foot deep, the water. So it was all that carpet silkweed. That's horrible shit, to put a handful of bait in. It looks really messy and can easily close up over your bait. So I went in and found an area where it was clear. It was about the size of a dinner plate. And I put a load of chopped tigers in, pellet. My method mix, basically, just loose.
Yeah.
And I decided to use a lead and push the lead into the bottom and use the short rig on it. And all the fish were coming in and flanking over the bait and shooting off. And I thought, there's something wrong here.
Yeah, what's that all about?
It was just like a solid bag that had broke down.
Right, so
it was too neat. They'd seen that one many times. Because when normal pellet breaks down and the bag, it's very contrived unless the birds have been in and smashed it up or other fish.
It's pretty uniform.
It's like a trap. Especially on the only clear spot amongst the weed. So I thought, I need to have a rethink. So I went in and smashed it up and made it look like someone had been in there kicking the shit out of it.
What, just with your feet?
Yeah, I spun it all. Yeah. So there was all pellets and bits of chopped tiger and everything stood in all the weed. So it looked like someone had kicked it up and slopped it everywhere. And I had, I think I had a 30 and 620. But I watched every one of them pick up my hook bait. And there was no hesitation. Straight in, bang, straight on it. But if I did it neat again, I did it on purpose in another hole, put it in neat.
Flank off
and they were flanking off it. So that learnt me. So I thought, when I do my method, I want it to break down and explode and pop and fizz.
Hence all the active elements in there.
So when I do a bag mix or anything, I tend to put those elements in that spit it out all over the place. It's not something that a lot of people might consider that.
No.
But if you do an exploding bag mix or an exploding method mix and you do a comparison one against one, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. You get miles more bites on the exploding one.
Yeah.
But it shows how we've conditioned them to be scared of something that's too contrived.
They've seen it, haven't they?
Yeah. And therein lies the story. If you always choose a clear spot to put your bait on, that's a reoccurring theme. Sometimes you want to be right in the weed.
Yeah.
I mean, talking of which, I went to Milo Colombo's who's a world champion match angler, Italian. And I was looking through all his his goods that he sells and devices, and it was a bit of an eye-opener, actually. He's in his trophy room. It looks like bloody Liverpool or Man United trophy. Well, not the recent Man United trophy room, but the ones from the past. Tons of World Cup medals and Christ knows what.
If you've got a trophy room, you've made it, haven't you?
Yeah. And I seen these things, and they were like, them Nash's surface controllers, them
bolt machines,
bolt machines, critically balanced ones that sink very slowly, but they've got a lot of volume on them.
Mm.
And I got some off him. I says, "What are you using these for?" He says, "For fishing over weed." Hey, this is for match fishing, not for carp fishing. So I got a load off him. I've used them all up and lost them over the years. But I used them, and I went on linear fishing over the onion weed. So you got all the casting weight. So it's like an inline lead, but it's transparent. It was just resting on the bottom, but enough bolt effect to hook them. It was sublime fishing over the thick weed. And what a tactic. And there's a product idea for someone to do, as a very valid tactic, because most of the waters are weedy as buggery. I mean, how often do you climb up trees and the fish are over unfishable weed?
Yeah.
You could maybe get a chod on it, but you could even use this as a lead instead of a lead on a choddy. You could put the slow sinking thing on a chod. There's an idea for you guys. So that's how my mind works constantly, I'm always sort of picking up things and doing stuff,
Talk to me about buoyancy of bait as well, because I remember talking to you when we were at Clearwater a while ago about that, and that was like, because so much of it now with regards to media is about buoyancy, resetting rigs and whatever else, and what you'd done a while back with regards to buoyancy was pretty mega.
Yeah, well, what happened was how did it come about? Yeah, I was making. Oh, it was in the 80s.
Yeah,
I was trying to make my own pop-ups, and beside the obvious of putting little squares of polystyrene in them or cork or something like we did eventually, I was adding baking powder and stuff to the to my cat food boilies that I was making, and then I started baking them in the oven. Some of them were like super buoyant, almost like chum mixers. And I thought, oh shit, they're too buoyant. They were ridiculous. You like a swan shot on them and stuff like that. I mean, I wish I could still kept the recipe, because it's quite hard to make something so buoyant.
Yeah.
And then I started messing around. Besides doing bakies, I was microwaving hook baits or free offerings, trying to see if microwaving them would make them float. Because it does. It's the same as deep frying particles will make your hook baits float.
I don't know where your mind, it's just your mind, isn't it? You just think, I'll try it.
Yeah, so I was deep frying particles, and then I tried it with maple peas. Big fuck up. This is when I lived at my parents' place. I put maple peas in, and they went off like firecrackers. So I got a deep fat fryer, it exploded, and it was just lard all over the ceiling and everything. It was just like, oh fuck. Net curtains melted with the boiling fat on them and everything. It's like being peppered with it, it's like carnage. So don't try that one. But most of the particles will float if you deep fat fry them. And so anyway, get back to what I was doing. I was microwaving. I burnt my mum's microwave out doing it eventually. She was super pissed off with that.
You've wrecked a kitchen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've done all sorts, yeah. I mean, that's the... Well, I'll tell you another thing. No, it's a bit crude. I'd best not go on to that story. But so I was microwaving the freebies to see... And what happened was they'd be buoyant while they were still warm.
Yeah.
As soon as they cooled off, they'd sink. So you're really having to bake the crap out of them to get them to float, and even then you're struggling. But they would sink really slowly, almost like perfect wafters. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. Which is interesting for some of the viewers. They might want to make their own wafters. And if they ain't got a wafter mix, it might be worth just messing around with your microwave to make your own perfect wafters. So there's food for thought for you. There's a little tip to try. It might only be 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and you've got yourself an easy solution to a problem without having to make your own. So what I was going to go, then I thought, do you know what? The hook bait is never the same as the free offerings. Stating the obvious, you've got a rig attached to it and a hook.
Yeah.
And the way it behaves in water is so different. It's the common denominator with everything we do is tethered. So I thought I need to turn it all on its head and completely piss the fish off and confuse them. So I thought, why don't I add an element of buoyancy instead of adding an element of buoyancy to the hook bait? I'll add an element of buoyancy to the free offerings. That's how my mind works. So I started getting a dinner plate in and putting batches of boilies in because it affects them. If you just do a tester with a couple of boilies, it's not the same as a full plate.
Okay.
So I had to do full plates full dinner plate because they absorb a different amount of micro radiation or whatever it is that, microwave waves. Let's get it right. So the heat's deflected and the convex heat works differently on just a small batch than a bigger batch. That's why I ended up burning a microwave out eventually because I was getting giddy with it. I tried to sort of fast track it with a shitload of bait in there and it ended up
10 kilos in
sparking it out. Yeah, so I started timing all these batches and then I put them in, when they cooled off, I was putting them in water and I got everything from fast sinkers to super slow sinkers. Some of them were taking 2 minutes of microwaving and then they'd only just sink. Then I was mixing them all together and then I mixed sizes.
Oh.
So I was baiting up with this lot and the result was astounding, staggering. The fish just didn't know what had hit them. So they're coming in and you can imagine it on the bottom, all the baits bouncing around. They didn't know which was the hook bait.
Yeah, they can't single that out.
No, it completely threw them. So everything was bouncing about and it sort of was like, I don't know whether it triggered some kind of feeding response, but the results were crazy. And I thought, oh my God. And I did it on Redsmere and it was just like crazy. I had a mental catch on it. And then I thought, why? It wasn't feasible to keep doing it. It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
So when I was at Dynamite, I spoke to Pete Chandler, who was the sales director. So he had a lot of input on what we were doing and that, and I was always full of ideas. And I says, Pete, why don't we do, without telling anybody, baits that are done like this with a different amount of krillin or, lighter ingredients that will alter the buoyancy of the bait. So you could put shrimp meal in, for example, which is a super light buoyant material. Isn't expensive, so you could do, say, in one batch 5% of shrimp meal. In the next one, 7.5%, and so on and so on, and then you mix them all together. So the end user wouldn't know what's going on, but the result would be phenomenal because you've got all these baits that react the same when they put them in. And Pete says, very valid point, he said, Frank, what happens if someone's not on fish and that, and they're putting this out, and then some of them start popping to the surface when they've weathered? He said it'd be a bit of an own goal, that one. I kind of had to agree.
Yeah.
But if you're making your own bait yourself, and you make your own bait actively, or you want to mess around with the microwave, for example, what's not to like about that? And I tried it on Birch Grove. I thought, why didn't I carry on doing this? So I thought, I'm going to do it again. So I was on the Winter Syndicate. So I did it, and I had one of my biggest ever hits on there. I think I had 11 fish. And, in a couple of days, and, a good few 30s and that, and I thought, oh my God. And it adds it unless it was just coincidence, and it just kicked off. But it was just so weird the way it worked.
I don't think you kick off to that extent.
No, I don't. I don't think so. So I think it had to be linked.
There's definitely a dimension. I think about buoyancy. If you're fishing like a solid PVA bag or something, I'll think about buoyancy. But in terms of like different particle sizes, maybe different types of stuff in your mix. But the actual buoyancy, if you're fishing just, let's say, just boilie, for example, and you're putting them out there, not an element that I reckon 99.9% of anglers wouldn't even consider, really, apart from the hook bait.
Well, it's when you think about it, all your freebies are going to act exactly the same, aren't they? If you put a bed full of 16 millis in, and because everyone they'll mess around with it. With a lot of the rigs sort of dictate that you're using a very buoyant bait if you're using like inch stiff rigs or that reset and all the rest of it, or else you'll use wafters, but they never really mimic or act the same, and they probably don't have to in some circumstances.
Yeah.
The important bit is the resetting and they're available, and keep the rig sound and working. It's probably quite an important aspect. I get that, but it's an interesting thought, isn't it? And
it's a different thought, mate.
Yeah,
in terms of bait. Yeah.
And I mean, I know where we were going before. I probably want to touch on that again, where you were saying about keeping notes and checking on things. I know we're bouncing about a bit, but while it's in my mind, like I said last winter, I did it by nagging them and leaving the rods out. If I didn't get a bite, they would stay out for the whole 48.
Yeah.
I didn't touch them. That was the key part of it. I'd worked that one out because it was part of the nagging winter process. I've been on other waters in the winter where you've got a big head of fish, smaller fish, and there's not much natural food, and they're competing for food and they're hungry, like Cuttle Mill used to be.
Yeah.
And that one, it paid to be super busy. I used to, when I first went on there, I was watching some of these guys. It was like they were fly fishing. And I thought, but they weren't putting any freebies in. It was all just single hook baits or...
Yeah.
And I thought, or stringers, and or mesh bags. And I thought, Christ, they're doing a lot of casting. And then I started, when I started fishing it, I only fished it in the winter, I started realising that if you weren't busy, the fish were taking you on all the time, getting shut of your rig, and they were marking it and going, eating around it, and then almost like, oh, that's dangerous. They were communicating to each other, and then, but if you could cast it almost back to the same spot, and it'd give you another chance.
Yeah.
But if you left it,
it's marked.
The day would just ebb away and you're blank.
Yeah.
Else you'd be lucky to come away with something. But if you were busy, but I found that even taking it a stage further, I was using 10 millis and I was like a match angler, constantly topping it up, and that confused them because they couldn't mark anything because it wasn't just a single hook bait they could mark. Or
everywhere.
It was everywhere, so it pissed them off and they didn't know what was going on. Oh, I had some big hits doing that. From constantly spraying it with 10 millis. It was just ridiculous, What
about this element of, because you talked about taking notes and you talked about this whole experimentation process throughout the course of your angling. For you, in terms of casting, recasting, that whole element on each rod, you talked there about being marked and not being picked up for the rest of the day. How or what have you found in terms of that, in terms of recasting? Because there you're saying if you immediately recast or you recast in, you've got another chance. On certain big fish venues, you tend to see a lot of people sort of fall by, chuck out to be ready for the first light bite, and then chuck out last thing at night to make sure you're ready again for the next one. What experimentations you've done around that, mate? Because I know you've done a bit of changing times and things.
Well, the less food you put in, the more often you've got to cast.
Okay.
Is a rule of thumb.
Yeah.
So the more bait you put in, the less often you've got to cast because you've got enough to confuse them.
Yeah.
That they can't suddenly go, I'm sure that there's tons of it out there. When you see these underwater films and there's bait littered everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, you're getting different groups of fish coming in and it's more difficult, even if it's just small, random 2s and 3s of big fish. I think it's more... When there's a spread there, it's almost like you going back to a Chinese banquet and saying which one was a problem here, as opposed to the elephant in the room that's just the one problem on the table, as opposed to a load of food on the table. Which one's the poison chalice that's gone off? You wouldn't particularly know. So It's a little bit like that. I'm not giving the fish too much credit. It's just that, as a rule of thumb, you either do the nagging route, you nag them, or if you're fishing just bags, solid bags, even over spom, if you're not spomming it crazy and say you're doing 10 spoms or something, I find it's much better to put a solid bag out regular, and then you time all 3 rods on your venue. All venues are different, by the way, but you'll get some surprises, and 9 times out of 10, it'll be the method or the solid bag or whatever that you recast regular. So the one
that goes first.
You're resetting it, and then that's the new book that Sam Toro's done with Gaz Fairham.
The Northern Chapters.
Chapters. Well, Sam Toro's a tidy angler.
Yeah.
He had that leather out of Martin, the very deep water, the old sort of the bottom collapse. It's down to 80 feet. Well, he got it on a zig, and he did very well on the zigs. Very good angler with the zigs. And he said, very interestingly, that one of the things that I took note of straight away when I was reading it is he found that if you're using zigs and you just sit there and wait and play the waiting game, it was rubbish. He got accused of almost fly fishing with zigs because he was recasting them that regular. He was tripping the fish up. They mark it. Be under no illusion. It's like they do with a surface bait. You can see them on the mixers and that. If they see something's wrong, they'll avoid it and skirt round it.
We'll have every freebie around the other side.
So it's just a mirror image just under the surface, and it's the same on the bottom. It's happening on all levels. So basically, he worked out that you could almost put it right back where it was on a clip almost, but as long as it was in a slightly different position, you're back to square one again and fishing again.
Yeah.
You've got a reset, You've hit the reset button. And it worked, and he caught loads of fish off it. Got away with murder with it.
When you say regularly, what you talking? Every hour? More frequent than that?
Oh, much more than that. Every 10 minutes, every 20 minutes.
Louise, yeah.
Well, when I started timing, it doesn't work everywhere, because you go on some places with a low-headed fish.
Yeah, of course.
You've got to be sensible about it. But generally speaking, I was staggered when I was doing a lot of the match fishing. I was doing it in Romania and stuff for €10,000 against the Romanians that are highly competitive, for when there's money involved. Mention money with Romanian guys and you've got some serious competition against you, You've got to be on the top game to beat them people.
Yeah.
And because money's hard come by, and you'd be amazed at the effort they put in. They don't sleep for a week.
Yeah.
So I went on there, and then it became obvious that I had to start timing the rods, because I copped some of the Romanians with alarm clocks under the rods.
Right.
The penny dropped immediately.
Yeah.
They're not, but what they were doing was they were timing every rod. So, but they were doing it on a 2-hour basis. So if they got a bite on one rod, they were putting it out, and if they hadn't had a bite on any of them within 2 hours, it was back in. But I thought, let's take it a whole lot further than that. I'm going to do tests on every rod.
Yeah.
So I'm going to test that one for 20 minutes, that one for 4 hours, and that one for 8 hours, for example. And we'll see if there's a common denominator. And I thought, And then I thought, no, I'll change it. I'll do it half an hour, 2 hours, and 4 hours. So the middle ones, the 2 hours like they were doing, because I got talking to the Romanians, became friends with some of them, and they said, 2 hours we found is a great time on this particular water. And most waters seem to be 2 hours. So I was very interested in that. And they had it as a general rule of thumb. So I thought, I'm going to find my rule of thumb, my waters. So just out of interest, I thought, well, I wonder if 2 hours will come out best where I'm fishing. It's pretty good, but the half-hour one was better.
Half hour, yeah.
Yeah. And I would have never have thought that.
No.
Never have said it. And it's almost like weird. You're thinking, shit, you're going to scare the fish, surely.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. You're going to spook them.
But it would appear that that's presuming the fish are in your swim constantly anyhow.
Mm.
So I'm not saying recast religiously every half hour, but on your own water, you're not learning anything, just getting up in the morning, waiting for the feeding spell to pass, getting to 11 o'clock, think, oh, I've missed the feeding spell, I'll redo all 3 rods. And then just an hour before darkness, you do the same thing. You're not learning anything. You're learning nothing. So the only way to do it is to have a controlled experiment where you do 1 rod, say, every half hour, 1 every 2 hours, and 1 every 4. Or it might be 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever you want to make it, you can do. You can have 1 half hour, 1 8 hours, and 1 every 24 hours.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. But that's down to the people that want to try it to make their mind up whether it's worth it. But my God, you learn something from it. It sets a precedent for you then, because you've learned something. You think, if I just sit on my hands, it's not good enough. They're getting away with it, and I need to rebait.
Yeah,
I need to refresh it. You know what I mean?
But it's that willingness to take a risk, isn't it? And to even think about doing that sort of stuff, because you can all go there and go through the motions.
Well, you could do the same with you could do the same. I mean, what I do, for example, when I'm using a spom,
I
put 5 over one, 10 over another, and 20 over another, and I'm constantly doing experiments like that. That's the only way you're going to learn.
Yeah, it's
in a constant state of flux, but at least you get a guideline. I mean, how do you know when you're watching some DVD on the TV why Danny Fairbrass suddenly decides he's putting 10 in? You have to have a starting point and a finish point, so why not just make your own program so that at least you're learning something from that's how I've always worked. And don't go off what other people are doing, try it yourself and find out, and and that's what makes it interesting. It's I find it fascinating. I mean, that's why I've always liked making my own baits.
Yeah. And
hey, I'll tell you something, right? If I had my own crew and was doing an underwater film,
go on,
or had that facility, or just out of interest, what I'd like to do. Well, I'm from started carp fishing in 1970.
Yeah.
So I'm as old as the bloody art, And but we had an interesting process then, because we used to do free lining.
Yeah.
So we'd have a size 2 hook typically, or a size 4, and we'd make a ball of paste. So there's no bloody lead in it, or no rig. So we'd have like 10-pound line, and you just cast the ball of paste out and expect the carp to attack it and eat it. And they would. They'd take it on. And the more interesting the ingredients were, the more they'd attack it. Can you imagine getting some of these fantastic ingredients we've got now, making a paste up, making a ball about the size of a golf ball with a size 2 in it, with no rig or anything, and casting it out and seeing what has happened? No one's ever done it.
No.
I think that'd be amazing to see. I'd like to see the carp's reaction to paste baits as opposed to ones that have always been boiled. Because I think there's a lot of mileage in using in baits where the albumins are not locking all the attractors in, especially in winter and in the colder months when things don't transmit in the water so easy. And I'd like to see a big bed of maggots and see the carp's reaction and feeding response on maggots. I'd like to see it on hemp seed, mass baiting with hemp. I'd like to see what they're doing on chopworm and worm.
Talk to me about that. You said before about worm fishing and a certain gentleman that you had out on the bank with you. We all know, I think it's been popularised in recent times by a fair few anglers, how devastating fishing with worm can be. You, worm fishing, what typically, if you're fishing worm, would you have it on the hook as well? Or do you have it just in your mix?
No. Listen, we're on a very funny subject here that I don't like talking about, but I suppose I will.
Am I giving away your edges here, mate?
It's one of them. To hell with it. I went fishing with, it was probably best part of getting on for 15 years ago, maybe more. I went with Johnny Bannister, who's a very dear friend of mine, large in life character, treads his own path, fantastic bloke. Me and him hit it off and had some right laughs, and he's just a great fella. And we went on Hardwick Smith's.
Yeah.
And we were going to do a feature. He had the magazine at the time, that Carp Addict, and I'd helped with it. I even chose the title for it, suggested that to him, the Carp Addict. And he says, let's do a feature. So, I was doing really well down there. I was having some good fish, and I thought I'd got it taped and got it off to a fairly fine art, very consistent. And it was one of them sort of summer spells about August, when it's red hot.
Yeah.
And the fish have had a good pasting. It was just like everyone was spodding and, doing the old tram lines to the bar out in the middle and all the same old routine, really. And it was in the doldrums. The fish, we were in a big high pressure. The fish just weren't having it, or so it appeared. So JB turns up and he's got a guest chair, a 2-pint maggots in, a small rucksack and 2 rods and a landing net. We're supposed to be doing a session.
Yeah.
And I said, what are you doing? You're just having is that just your camera gear and that, and just a couple of quick rods of you? He said, no, this is it for the session. I said, well, where's your bed chair and your bivvy and all that? He says, I won't need that, we're too busy. So I went, fuck off, John. I said, stop taking the piss. I said, look, what are you going to be doing? He said, no, that's it. I'm on the worm. He says, have you used worms before? I says, of course I've used worms before, but only typically is what most carp anglers had done in an emergency, stalking on a float.
Yeah.
And even then you get mired with perch or something. Oh, sod that. So says, I've got to see this then. And I'd got everything, kitchen sink with me. And we're on that point.
The point, yeah.
Just where you've got Hardwick Smith's, not the conveyor bank, the other one.
Okay.
So I'm fishing into Hardwick and fishing on the bar, on the plateau, and they just weren't having it.
Mm.
So I was fishing sweet corn and pellet and, plastic corn on the rigs and some chopped boiling and stuff and the liquids. Nothing doing. No one was doing anything. So John said, I've never fished here before. He said, show us some of the spots. So I took him down near the cut through and I said, you want to be fishing 11 feet here. They can't see you and you can't see them, but they're passing all the time. Like, it's like traffic
commuter
going around.
route.
Yeah. On a shop on the corner.
Yeah.
I said, so you only had 2 rods. I said, so he says, all I'm using is a 4-inch fluorocarbon hook length, size 6 hook. He's getting a worm. His hair was about that long on the, about 3 inches long. With a standard stop, and he was getting a baiting needle through the lobworm, nipping the tail off.
Yeah.
So there's about 2 inches of tail. He was getting a baiting needle through the lob's mouth, pulling the hair the hair through, and then putting a normal stop in the worm's mouth, and then getting an inch or 2 of the tail and threading it round the bend of the hook, so it just looked like one complete worm on fluorocarbon. A small 3-ounce flat pair, inline lead, and a small bag of 2 mil,
throwaway
pellets, just to stop it tangling to get it in. He puts it in. I thought, interesting. He's obviously keen on it. About an hour later, we hear a screaming run, and he's got a 28-pounder. And then I thought, that was quick.
Shit.
And he's up all night playing fish.
Mad.
So I'm like gilly and photographing him and that. And I thought, this is crazy. And my head's starting to cave in. So I thought, I didn't expect this. I kind of knew that worms are good, but not to this degree. And then I should have known. It was obvious. They love worms.
Yeah.
It's just so natural. It's one of the favourite treats of anything.
Yeah.
So I moves and gets into Smith's at the back, and I've got the rods out. I've got fish humping over the top of me, but they just weren't playing the game. So I said, Johnny, get one of your worm rods and put it right next to my rods on my baited area. So he did and had a 22-pound common straight away, and I thought, oh my God. I says, give me some worms.
Get me some worms, lad.
Yeah. So I've nicked a load of worms off him, and then I changed things slightly. I was using coated braided hook lengths, like jelly wire it was at the time. And I realised that the worm can manipulate the stop out of its mouth, so I used a 6mm bead, rubber bead, and put an extender stop in the bead so the worm couldn't possibly spit the stop out and get off, or be sucked off by a nuisance or by a carp.
Yeah.
I had 5-ounce leads on and everything, you know. I thought, let's go shit a bust here. Oh my God, it was electrifying.
Yeah.
So everywhere I took it, it was just like craziness. And then I started messing around with the worm soil.
Yeah.
I got my own wormery. Started working out where I can get the worms at the right money from, chopping the worms. The more I could afford, the better it got. And then, you know, I hung myself out to dry. I did a chapter in my book, which has been out for 6 years now, Every Bit of Blue, and I called it The Secret Weapon. The chapter in there sort of highlighted what I'm talking about now. I think a lot of people clock that. And I got one guy got in touch with me for an example, and he's a northern angler, and he said he was with quite a well-known bait company, and he was doing very little.
Yeah.
He was doing very little. And he said he read my chapter in the book, and he decided to go for the worm thing. And I think he had 32 fish out of linear out of Manor, including his first brace of 40s. English, he'd never had a 40 before. And he said it was embarrassing.
Yeah.
And he said he used quite a few quids of a worm to do it. He said, but they were shitting out the soil and the worm casts everywhere. And then I heard, obviously, about people using £1,000 within the British Championships and, you know, getting like £1,500 of fish and other people struggling and that, you know, and it was who could spend the most on the worm and the chop. And that. But a lot of people have tried it and perhaps got a bit carried away with it. And one of the things that I've found that's a key point is if you start feeding with a lot of chopped worm at the wrong time of year, it's like you're welcoming everything that swims to the party. So it's almost like you've got a silverfish explosion, tench, bream, everything goes berserko, perch, and it's hard to feed them off. You kind of just get them going mental, and it can be very frustrating. So for every carp you might catch, you might have 20 nuisances, and a lot of people get totally worn out by it, and they're hard to keep.
Yeah,
sun affects them. You know, it's a pig. But if you've got the patience and the wherewithal to try it, and you're sick of what you're catching, doing what you're doing, it's a very interesting thing. And if you've never tried it, you've got to try it, because until you've tried it and seen what it can do, you ain't really imagining how good it is. So I would say that's a definite must for anyone that's not done it. And as an aside, how could I put this? Any boilie rig in the world with just a boilie on is not as good as a boilie with some worms on top of it.
Oh, do you know where I did well on that? Eric's Willows, mate. Yeah. Tip a boilie with a worm, mate, or a zig or anything. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, why have I just said that?
Well, it's done, mate. People
what an asshole. Yeah. Anyway, I suppose my love for the audience and the anglers out there, and I'm not a greedy person or a selfish person. I think it's made me say a few things that I probably shouldn't have today.
You'd be all right, mate.
Yeah.
Well, that's
but
good.
I hope people are warm about the fact that I've laid myself a bit bare and said some things that are the definite edges that I've got that have been very kind to me, you know. So that's one thing about it.
They'll definitely be appreciated over the London nets well anyway, mate. One more thing on bait, mate, and that for me, before we move on to the other aspects, you and bait in terms of your own company. I remember on Bluebells, the classic video, if you like, that came up that you filmed on there about it all. Your sort of own bait firm, how did that all come to be or come about? Because obviously there's experimentations in doing your own, there's recipes, and then there's making it commercial and sort of bringing it out there. What led to that?
Oh, well, what it was is I think all of us who's mad on bait, at some stage in your life, you you want the shackles off and the handcuffs so that you can do exactly as you want in your own bait.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to explore where I could go with producing my own stuff. And, of course, when the reality of it hit that it's not going to be just a little game, it's like you have to make money. I almost did it going into it wanting virtually, it wasn't economically sound at all. I went into it as a bait fanatic, wanting to put exactly what everybody would ever dream about having in a bait. And then you look at the raw commercial side of it and you think, shit, I'm never going to make any money because I'm not willing to cheapen baits off and put a load of rubbish in there.
Yeah.
Well, not rubbish, but cheaper ingredients. And you end up sort of self-destruct button gets pressed. And it's all the time is a trade-off between trying to stick to your own integrity and then but make something that's viable as well. And I think every bait company has that. And I felt like I just wanted to see how the public would react to what I wanted to do, and I got some amazing feedback on that. And then other people got involved in the company that weren't my choice and that, and it kind of mutated and didn't go where I wanted it to go. So I kind of opted out, really. But I'd love to be in that position where, as a wealthy man, and could just do it as a
labour of love.
Yeah. And then, of course, the sky's the limit. You could literally, do what you wanted with things, and that'd be very interesting. But life's not like that, is it? You always have to have compromises.
Yeah, I don't know. There might be a few wealthy punters out there that drop you a message and say, "Get me a pot of Frank's specials, mate."
Yeah, I mean, I still make hook baits myself and things. I like that aspect of it. I'd always like to make a bait if I could, but next best thing is to have like-minded people that you work with that want to do that, and I have that vision to do it. So I guess be interesting to see what the future holds, especially with what I've got coming up in the short while.
Watch this space, mate.
Yeah.
Happy days, mate.
Yeah.
Talk to me. We're going to go down sort of the rig route, but another chapter of your angling in a place where, and you wouldn't have known it, but I was fishing, I saw you and was too shy to come and talk to you, mate. It's Bluebells. Because you're an absolute ledge. We talked about Bluebells before, like between each other, but it's definitely a place where you did well, but zigs came into play, didn't they, mate? Yeah,
it's an interesting thing there. The winter form's terrible. I mean, Tony's a very good mate of mine, so I hope you don't think I'm being rude by saying that, because I don't want to put people off going fishing. I mean, a lot of places shut up shop in the winter. I mean, of course you can catch them, but I remember a kingfisher in particular, which was my favourite. It used to, end of October, it almost shut up shop, and because it's quite deep, and the fish had got a lot of layers to disappear into. It kind of would be very, very difficult to catch on the bottom. And I remember I soon rounded on it, and as a rule of thumb, I found that 2 feet under the surface, which is in the thermocline, was a particularly good place to set your zig in the water column. It just seemed to be the most prolific. So I started using it 2 feet under the surface on Kingy and found it to be brilliant. And I remember it hadn't done a bite for a long, long time, and I went on one February. I was with some of the guys. We had a kind of social session on there. And I remember seeing the fly hatch going on, and some midges. And all fly fishermen know that the flies are constantly hatching all through the winter. Yeah. It's part of the cycle of life. Less in the winter, but it still happens. A lot of it happens at night as well, which is why zig fishing is particularly good at night. Because you've got you wake up in the morning, you've got the carcasses where they've got on your bivvy and shelled the carcass and that, and then disappeared. The caddis flies and things. So you know that they're safe then. The predator's not out as much at night, so the flies hatch at night thinking it's safer. They've evolved to do that. So the old bit of black foam in the middle of the nights, I spoke to a lot of guys, even to this day, and they say, "Oh, we don't bother at night." I thought, you're kidding me? That's the best time to use zigs, you know. So I soon sussed that out, that the night time was the best. But the fly hatches were so small, to mimic them, I had to use pieces of black foam that were ridiculously small. They were 6mm.
Jeez.
So I was using size 12 hooks, but when I was on 14-foot hook length, there wasn't enough buoyancy to lift it. So you could easily put it out there and have yourself a slow sinking 14-foot hook length with a piece of foam on it, which was useless, and a little tiny hook. So unless you really check all these things, you're fishing yourself an absolute load of crap. So I was doing tests as I normally do, getting up trees and looking and making sure it's up there, good style. And then I realised I needed a subsurface controller, so I lodged in place a cork ball on the hook length.
Okay.
So it gave added buoyancy to lift the 14-foot hook length, so I could get away with a size 12 hook and a micro hook bait.
So you got a little bit of support built in.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, so you start getting bites on super micro zigs, but you needed the buoyancy aid to help.
What's it like playing them on that?
Your ass falls out. You're crapping yourself for the whole fight as well.
They're all units in there as well, aren't they?
Yeah, well, it's like tightrope walking with a blindfold on. It's a bit like that. You by the seat of your pants, you just shit yourself the whole fight. But it's better than nothing. It's better than blanking.
Yeah.
So if you're in absolute dire straits, the only way I could get a bite was to go super small, super fine. And you think, well, surely, you see some of these match type successful guys using size 6 hooks with the big massive zigs and all that, and they get away. But for me, it just didn't work like that. Maybe they know something I don't. I had to go really small to get bites, I suppose it culminated. I had a 40 pound common on a full moon, and my hadn't been a fish out for yonks, and I was fishing on the bottom because I was fishing a place where it was 17 feet, and I had to use 15-foot zigs. And when you're by yourself, unless you've got a super long landing net handle, you can't do it. You need someone with you to net the fish. So I was by myself, so I had to fish on the bottom. So I knew I was basically wasting my time. Then my mate came down, and it was Baltic, the conditions. I said, "Thank Christ you've come. I can put my 15-foot zigs on now." He went, "No, I'm fishing on the bottom." I says, "Mate, you're flogging a dead horse here." So I put the 15-foot zigs on. 1 o'clock in the morning on a full moon. Boom. I had that one that's the biggest. I forget its name now. The well-known common, the big one. Then I suppose a lot of people wouldn't think of spomming all night.
No.
With mixers. I mean, what I was doing was I was using that and the micro pellets and spomming all night long. Get up religiously and put more in, and then the zigs fished over depth were going off.
Yeah, the over depth.
But this is in the summer and spring. That's
the first time I'd seen somebody sort of talk about that, if you like, was over depth zig fishing. So surface fishing at night, basically, with an over depth zig.
Oh, mate, it's fun. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, what you do, you add 2 feet to the depth.
So you have it 2 foot over depth. Do you?
Yeah.
Do you have anything to anchor it, like a little shot or anything, or no?
Well, what I have is obviously you need your. What I use, interestingly enough, I've tried all sorts of different hook baits for fishing over mixers at night.
Yeah,
and I get a small plastic tiger nut.
Yes, I know.
And I trim it so it looks just like a mixer, like a barrel.
Yeah,
like a little barrel. And I use that on it, and I fish it 2 foot longer than the depth. So if it's 8 feet, I fish it 10 feet. And
everyone a screamer.
I mean, you're saying have I got a controller?
Yeah, an anchor or something.
No. Just fish it.
Just 2
foot
fish it
over depth. And the only thing I do, I noticed there was some refraction on the surface.
Yeah.
And I use a hook length called Stroft. I've mentioned it many times, this. A mate of mine, Big Phil Davey, he told me about it. He was fishing Lynch Hill and catching loads of fish in the winter on zigs. And and he beating it up. He was doing extremely well. And he said the England match team, not the Carp team, the Phipps team, but the...
I was going to say it's a match line, isn't it?
Nuddy type match angling, Bob Nudd. Well, they use that Stroft for the hook lengths, a lot of them. Don't matter who they're sponsored by, that's a very good hook length. It's about £7 on eBay. It's got a blue label on Made in West Germany. It's totally transparent. It's just falls off brilliant. It's not a blatant plug. It's not winning anyone any favours, this. It's just, I'm saying it as a tip for the reader. So this Stroff stuff is just fantastic. It's rated in kilos. I tend to use the 6 kilo stuff. It's really strong as hell. You fish in weedy waters with it as well. It's phenomenal. It just so behaves. And I was using that, fishing it over depth, and I was getting a dust shot and putting it about 8 inches away from the
hook.
From the hook bait.
Yeah.
And it was just enough to take that glare off that might turn the odd fish and spook them. And but at night it didn't matter, but in the day it mattered.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah.
But at night you were just getting screaming runs on the buzzers. It's fantastic.
It's devastating, isn't it?
Yeah. It is.
You can be. It's like greedy surface fishing. If you've got 3 zigs in place and you got them going,
you can hear them slurping away and going mental. And you couldn't put enough mixers in and surface baits at night. It's fantastic. 3 of them there, just whack. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Even on difficult waters, I remember using it on Christchurch.
Yeah.
Before it went syndicate, when that Petals was in there. Oh my God, it was just ridiculous.
But again, not something that a lot of people do, is it?
No.
Especially at night.
No.
Not at all.
So what I'm saying to you is if just the thought of just using 3 zigs with a piece of black foam on, for example, doesn't float your boat. I'm not talking about winter, I'm talking about spring and summer. Yeah. Try the over depth zigs and try the surface technique. And night and day, but night is sublime. So, unless you've actually tried it, just try it and see how good it is. And you can go quite heavy with the gear. You don't have to be too pussyfoot around, You can be quite brutal.
Tow rope.
In the dark. In the dark, you can get some proper sort of winching gear on.
Brutal in the dark.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah. So that'd be another aspect that might catch someone some fish if they've never tried it.
Definitely will, mate. Rigs. You said you've got a few tried and tested.
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, if I'm fishing, it probably sound boring to some people that have heard me carp on about it before, but I think the long shanks, although they're way out of favour, a lot of brands out there don't even do long shanks anymore, So I'm a dinosaur with that one, but a lot of people don't believe in that palm test. I disagree. I think gravity takes its toll, even in water where it's not as pronounced as in air, and you've got a different turbulence and stuff. It still has to... Sooner or later, something has to drag on the floor of their mouth to catch. That rule of nature applies. So I want something to enhance that. So the long shank tends to tuck and turn quickly. So I like that. I came up with a shot on the hook rig to accentuate that. And so it's all about the drag effect. I'll tell you a bit of a giveaway as well. Again, I went through a spell years ago, like most of us did, where you'd have a critically balanced hook bait on that sunk super slow, and you didn't want any shot hardly on the line and nothing like, in case it touched the lips when they're sucking it in. I've had a bit of a rethink on that one, totally. I've been messing around. Some of my friends from Belgium. Very successful anglers, big fish anglers on the continent that know the stuff. A small group of enclave of them, they were hiding the rigs when I went to see them in Italy, and they'd smashed this lake. I won't mention the name of the lake, it's not fair to them. Well, they'd had 800 odd fish, up to 80 odd pound, and they'd properly done a number on it, and they had some staggering fish. And I thought, oh my God. And I won't mention any names there because it's not fair, but they'd got 2.5 inches back on each rig, they'd got 3 gram.
3 grams.
3 gram weights.
Wow.
3 gram. And it was 2.5 inches back. You think about it. We're expecting fish to move the head and it hit a lead. Might be a 3 ounce, 5 ounce, whatever you want. You've seen that one before. That same repetition of all or nothing is a little bit. I think a lot of the time it's in and out without even making contact with the lead.
It's not touched the lead.
It's not touched the lead. So the only thing you can do to trip out that process is to start adding something they're not familiar with quickly as a precursor to hitting the main lead. And the way to classically do that is to add typically like a 3 gram Olivet or bigger. Now, it takes a set of kahunas to do this to start
100%.
with. But how are you going to learn something if you don't try it? So one of the little edges I'm going to tell everybody is you don't know till you tried it, and you'll get the shock of your life because it does make a difference. And at one time, it would have been the opposite thing to what I would have said, would have wanted. Oh, no. It's the mechanics. And it's getting back to that flip test again. It does all that and more. And when you add that little bit of weight to anything that's going to turn and flip, it trips them up. It's something that's got a chain reaction.
But as you say, like with everything, it's a process, isn't it? It's forever changing. Fish are ever learning and cottoning on, wising up, and there's forever that sort of tinkering around with you.
Yeah.
There's never a fear of like. There's never a feeling of like it works. I've done it.
I never make up in my own mind that it's not going to work before I've tried it.
Yeah.
It's almost like you beat before you start if you do that.
And you've also got the balls to try it because it's a big shout.
Yeah, because you'll never have one of them amazing edges if you're not, how should I put it, flamboyant. I think you have to have that dare to be different, and you have to have that mentality where you go, fuck it. If I fall flat on my face, so be it, but at least I've tried it.
Yeah.
It was the same with blue baits when I tried blue baits. They were phenomenal. They were fantastic. That's the last colour most people would want. Purple and blue are the bottom of the spectrum. They don't want to know about those. Purple, blue and black. How do you know till you've tried it? The fish haven't gone, I'm not mad on purple. Prince might like purple. I don't like purple. You know, well,
Nash, we did about the old purple bait, didn't we? There you go. As you say, but it's a big shout.
So just because it's a human thought, I don't think they'll like blue. Why? Blue's universally a bomber. If you do a range of hook baits and you do blue, you might as well forget it. You know, you might get the odd psychopath buy one. But
a colourblind
or someone that's colourblind, or someone that's sort of like reckless.
Yeah.
Or someone that's actually thinking outside the box and thinking, no, I'm going to try that. And I'd be that one.
Yeah.
So I'd be one of those names that I've just come out with.
Commercially not viable, though.
No, commercially not viable. But, you know, how can we treat a bloody fish, put our thoughts, or human thoughts, into what they think and how they see things and all the rest of it? So, you know, some of the things that I found that fish are attracted to is phenomenal that you wouldn't think, you know. And I mean, TCP.
Yeah.
Who would have thought they'd have been switched on by TCP? And then, you know, Albus oil. You know, some of these really sort of strong essential oils that are really powerful, you know, turns them on. WD-40. You know, who knows? We don't really know what the exact feeding triggers and mechanisms in their olfactory system. So
the only way you're going to get there is experimentation.
Yeah, I'm not saying you've got to go and use noxious substances in your bait or anything, you know, but it's just that there are no human rules don't apply to carp. That's all I would say about that, really. And, you know, contrary, Sod's Law always says that the guy that you're taking the piss out of, that you think's a noddy that's gone in a useless, hopeless swim, will catch the biggest fish in the lake. Sod's Law, that one.
Yeah.
You know, so if you start looking at all that, you think, well, there's got to be a method behind that, you know. And then that same guy, when he starts learning the knowledge from all the regulars on the lake, his catch rates usually go for a west.
Yeah, drop, don't they?
Yeah, drop. I mean, it doesn't always happen, but it's always interesting to see that process.
Mm.
You know, it either goes one way or the other, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but the amount of times they'll catch the big fish that, you know, your target fish that you've been after for ages is ridiculous. So I think this, and it's usually because they've got something that's not been in vogue on that water that you've gone off. It's different. So that tends to amplify the fact that you thinking outside the box isn't always a bad thing, you know.
No.
So
what about pop-up rigs? Obviously, the chod rig, mate, synonymous. Like, you pretty much, you've done a lot with regards to popularising that and using that.
Well, pop-up rigs, I hardly ever use running rig or, you know, the spinner rig that's popular.
Why is that?
Just because everybody seems to be using it. It kind of turns me off that. I know it's mechanically sound and it's interesting and obviously works. Just the thought of it's like having everybody suddenly goes out in skinny jeans and me wanting a pair.
You've definitely got a pair of skinny jeans here.
No, I just think, it's almost like a bit embarrassing, really. I know there shouldn't be trends or all that, but I just think, it looks like you're just jumping on it and thinking, I've gone to hell. I just like. I use the slip D rig quite a lot for wafters and things like that. I use a long shank for wafter rigs, and I don't tend to use hinge stiff rigs that much. But interestingly enough, I got I'll let a bit out, bollocks to it. I was fishing with Dangerous Dave, my mate, Dave Powell. He's a very interesting guy. He's a retired sort of very successful businessman, and he tends to choose quality over quantity, and he goes fishes rainbow a lot on that. And we went fishing in Italy, and I noticed he was very particular about his rigs. He'd had while he was setting his business up to get successful, he'd had a 30-year break from carp fishing.
30-year
30-year. Now this guy used to fish Ashley Pool with Kevin Maddox and all that, and regional organised in the BCSG, and he fished that dairy farm and all these, and Withy Pool. Successful angler Dave, and then he kind of just vanished overnight, and then he came back to it, and it'd all changed. But he's one of them guys that analyses everything. He's got the money to sort of work out what he wants and how he wants it. And I noticed he was using stiff booms from Gemini.
Yeah.
And I said, he got Ray Dale Smith to I hope he don't mind me saying this shit. He'll probably send me death threats after this, and fatwa on me, get some heavies to beat the shit out of me or something. And for mentioning it.
I'm not part of this, mate. Yeah. I was just there.
Yeah, so he's got these stiff booms and then these stiff booms. He tracked Ray Dale Smith down, that old rogue. Ray. He tracked him down. He was in some kind of hideout in Czech Republic or somewhere, He got him to make some of these booms that were £1,800.
1,800?
No, 80.
I thought you said 1,800.
No, not 1,800.
That's a bit stiff.
It'd be about as thick as your old lad. Anyway.
God, mate.
So, no, they were like £80, sort of £100. I mean, they were substantial, and they just didn't bend. It was almost like a knitting needle with a little curved, boom on the end. I thought, shit, it's a brick. And he got super sharp hooks on them, and they just didn't move. It was almost like someone's poking it in your mouth, like. Ugh. And that's exactly what happened. When them fish came in on him, oh my God, they were nailed. It was almost like someone had got a super sharp rig and poked it right down your tonsils. Some of the hook holes were crazy. They were like forceps. they were proper in. I was like that. Oh my giddy Aunt Fanny, they were buried out of sight. They were mental. He said, "Oh, don't lose much." But, hey, he had a run of fish though. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And he said, the people in the know are doing this. And he said, it's like different again. So I got in touch with Gemini and got me to do some super stiff booms. And, not the £1,800 version.
No. Not quite there yet.
Yeah, I'm fishing for orcas.
That's phase 2, mate.
Anyway, no, I got some made, and I've got to say, if you're going to use the stiff ones, you might as well go the whole 9 yards and use them sort of super stiff.
No,
and it's bloody good because they fluorocarbon, they just virtually vanish on the bottom, and it's very interesting.
On a lead clip?
Yeah, you use it on a lead clip, yeah. Or you can use them on in lines, but on a lead clip, yeah, as long as you're careful the way you set them up, they're fine. They just boom over. Serious.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
what about bottom bait fishing? You're synonymous with and it's not right, I know, but sort of stereotypically Redsmere, you're talking about your long shank hook, your little fluoros, your sort of critically balanced baits, all that stuff. Bottom baits, fishing much?
Yes, I do. I tend to think that there's quite a lot of mileage. I had a 40 out of Dave Lidston's Emperor Lakes syndicate. I went over there doing. Well, Dave's got a very successful, nice syndicate. He's got a couple of fish that hit 50s now and again in there. Good head of 40s. Beautiful place down in South Devon, near Kingsbridge. And Dave's a long-time friend of mine, and he lets me go as a guest now and again, So I wanted to do a session with my son, my eldest son, Guy. And then Simon McCabe says, could he come down and film it? And I said, well, it'd be nice. I'm friends with Simon, and he was doing that little series of films that he's been doing, And I said, yeah, go on then. So I asked Dave, could he come? And I felt a bit anxious about it because he's got a syndicate and we'd had lockdown. So,
right,
a lot of people had been denied the fishing. And it was pretty soon after in the summer when it had opened up. And I thought, oh, shit, it's not really fair, this going down. So he didn't mind. He says, listen, it doesn't matter. He said, an occasional guest, the members are used to it. It's not a problem. But I still felt bad. So I said, Dave, I can't do this. I brought my son with me, and then Simon's coming down with John, his cameraman. I said, what's the worst swim on the lake, the most unpopular? He said, it's called the Dead End. He said, no, don't do it. He said, go in one of the other swims. He said, it's not done a fish for ages. So I said, no, I'm going in the Dead End. And even more than that, me and Guy are going to double up in the swim. We're going to use 2 rods each. He says, there's no need for that. He said, that's too much. I said, no, that's what. He says, well, you've got Simon coming doing a film, haven't you? He says, you're under pressure to catch. I said, no, that's what I'm going to do. And you're allowed to use radio controlled boats on there. I mean, I've got one, but I didn't choose to use it at the time, It's a recent thing for me. I always was against them. Then I realised, why should I be the odd man out, really? And, I've been denied that choice if I so choose to do it. So I got one. Anyway, I says to our guy, I says, right, we're going to double up, 2 rods each, and we're casting. And I says, let's use big baits, and we'll use them straight out of the bag, bottom baits. I says, no one really does that much anymore. So we used 18 millies, long shanks, and with a shrink tube blowback on it, sort of line aligned, 7-inch hook length, 5-ounce lead. We left some time between casting out, so we didn't just bang four rigs in.
Yeah.
We only fished at about 30 yards out. About 50 baits round each hook bait. About 2 o'clock in the morning, Guy's got a run, and he had a 23, a fully scaled beauty it was. And I thought he'd picked up one of my lines, so I left it. I said, oh, you've clipped one of my lines. And we noticed when we landed, the fish mine was still going. So I had a 40 on the other rod.
Jeez.
And it's not a push over that water. It's quite difficult at times, And it was quite nice that to see. And it was one of the old characters of the lake that's a famous fish down there. But it just shows that it's one straight out of the bag, just the same as the freebies. What's not to like about that, It's like we're almost, with the way that we use some presentations, it's almost really making the upbait even more different to the freebies.
Yeah.
When you can actually just go and use one out of the bag and do that, and it's identical then, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think it's worth trying it occasionally. If you're constantly using pop-up rigs, just use one out of the bag and use it.
How do you make your decision or your starting point, Frank? There's so much in your locker. There's so much repertoire. You've talked about various different elements that potentially could be going through your head. When you get to a venue, what gives you the instinct, even if it is instinct, or the thought process to go, I tell you what, here I'm going to fish big baits, I'm going to fish little bags, I'm going to fish the method. How do you make those decisions?
Well, I don't think you ever just turn up and to a new venue, and I usually will have some prior knowledge of what's been the prevalent methods of catching them down there, and then I'll kind of work on my angle of the same theme, but with some tweaks on it, or I'll go completely different. And until I get a bit of an idea on where I'm going with it, I'm like anyone really. You kind of just got to bulldoze your way through some of your better starting angles. Like quite often I'll try the worm as an opening gambit, and a good fallback always is tiger nuts.
Yeah,
there ain't many waters where tigers don't work. Yeah, it's as long as you don't go too heavy with them. I always go quite light with tiger nuts. I don't go plastering them in. I think it's easy to overfeed them and screw it up for yourself. So I think if you do it in moderation, you're always going to be on a winner like that. And then if it's colder, you can't go wrong from using maggots. I always have an element of sweet corn in there and pellet as well. I just like it. If you're gonna do a solid campaign on a water, I think you could do a lot worse than doing mass baiting with hemp. If you're gonna choose a couple of swims and really put some effort in and pre-bait and really, really keep it going in, just to go through that process and see the swim erupting and going mental, and just seeing the sheer, I suppose, addiction from the fish is worth it just to behold. Never mind what you're going to catch on it. I mean, when you get some at hemp properly, I remember me and Burgess used to do it regular. He used to get his kit off and swim out at night and put in 10 kilo with a bucket and stuff, I've seen his little white knob that many times where he's come back out bollock naked, freezing his tits off. Like, I thought, well, that's one way of getting it in there. Because I'm not a brilliant swimmer, so it's always good to see him in action, And you're thinking, oh my God, and he used to catch tons of fish, and I used to join him with it. Oh my God, it was something to behold. And everywhere he took it, he'd do exceedingly well on it, And so if you've never tried that, a good starting point is, it's not going to be cheap. No, hemp is not cheap. But my God, if you're a bit disillusioned and you've not got, you've got lost a bit, get yourself sacks of hemp. Do that, and guess what's the best hook bait over the top? I tried yellow pineapple pop-ups, 10 millis, 12 millis. I tried tigers over the top with an element of tiger in there. I tried maize, corn. I tried every type of boiler you can think of, you name it. 20 red maggots on a maggot rig. 20 red maggots? Yeah, over the hemp. A little Brazil nut or something, nope. Right? 20 red maggots over the hemp. Wow. It was like electrifying. It was like turbocharging your fishing. Yeah, 20 maggots over the mass bait. Just hemp? Yep, just hemp. I didn't even have to put any freebies in, no maggot freebies in. That's what would do me. The fact that it's just hemp, I wouldn't have the confidence just to stick out a bunch of maggots. Oh, mate, it was just crazy. Crazy. So, yeah, 20 maggots. So, you'd have a piece of red foam, for example, a little slip D or a rig ring. Yeah. Micro ring swivel. Get a piece of foam. Get a shoelace. 20 maggots on one side of the shoelace. Through the foam. Yeah. Knot it and then double overhands, and then 5 or 6 of them, trim it off, check it. Just a balanced sort of bait. See you later.
Everyone a winner.
Oh my God, it was just incredible. Old Burgess got carried away. He was putting 100 maggots on it. It looked like a frigging golf ball.
Still going,
mate, no, he went a bit too far with that. You know, it was like, I was like that. Oh no, that's crazy. But it showed how effective the maggots were, you know, because he was getting giddy and using giant balls. Anything up to 30 was working, though. But 20 is a good number.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of pretty nuisance proof, and it sort of doesn't look too garish when they snuff it, because sometimes you get out, it looks like a frigging conker if you've got too many on. Yeah. So you got to be a little bit aware of what looks reasonable and, you know, acceptable. So that'll be another avenue to go down if you. And I didn't find anything improve the hemp apart from a couple of things. What have you classically added to? Let's ask you a question. Salt, yes, salt. Well, I always add salt to particles, anyhow.
Aniseed occasionally, that sort of.
Well, yeah, because aniseed's very good in the party blend, and that's always a nice thing to do. Well, this is another one for you. I used to try all sorts of additives with hemp to see if I could improve things, and there wasn't a lot that seemed to do it because it worked on its own. Yeah. Right, you know, it was so effective naturally. So, you know, I used to put Scopex in and different flavours and try things, and it was debatable whether it made it worse.
Yeah,
rather than improve it, and it sort of put the fish on edge. It was like, no, it's going away from the natural thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, mimicking little snails and things. But the one thing I did do. And Johan Leiden said, my mate who was a world kickboxing champion, I was sat fishing with him at Medina, and I told him in the World Carp Classic, and I told him to try this on he fishes the big waters in Lyon, you know, the Grand Large and what have you, and Mirabel, and there's some monsters in there, and he liked using hemp. So I said, what you do is you get the cinnamon, right. You know, the pods.
Yeah, the sticks,
from a delicatessen.
Yeah?
Yeah, and you grind them up and beat them up.
Whack it in.
And you put them in with it when it's boiling.
When it's boiling?
Yeah. Yeah, you mulch it all up and put it in with your hemp. And it smells of vanilla. It's vanilla pods. It's
vanilla pods?
Vanilla pods, yeah. I was
going to say cinnamon, yeah.
Yeah, not cinnamon. Vanilla pods, vanilla bean pods. What they use for flavouring custard.
The proper vanilla pods. Though.
Yeah, the proper vanilla.
The whole pod and all goes
the pod, the beans, the whole lot.
Go on, the boy.
You mulch it up. You can put it in a blender, but it's expensive.
Yeah.
You put that in. Oh my God, they seem to go mad for it. They go really mad for it. Yeah, honestly, I don't know what it is. And I've got something in the cupboard there that you might be interested in. This tells you what my mind works like. I think certain animals have certain characteristics that relate to what carp might do, or just on the off chance it might do. But they all like salt because of the salt licks. We know that, and they have to have it in the diet and in the blood for the health, like humans do. So that's one thing. So have you ever seen what happens when you put catnip in front of a cat?
No.
No,
cats, mate. I've got a dog.
Well, the cats go into a state of euphoria and go completely mental. And then if you put any food near them, they just wolf it down.
Right.
Even if they weren't that fussy about it previous. And they're on the backs rolling round going mental. I've never seen out like it. It's because I've kept cats for a long time. You know?
Yeah.
And every single cat goes completely berserko in a different zone. So I thought, I'm putting it in the bait. I want to see what carp do with it. And it's super interesting. I've got it now, and it looks like cannabis when you get it. It's certain ones are much stronger than others.
Right.
And so I've been experimenting with that for a while, and I'm going to say no more about that.
Frank, there's been a lot you've given away here, mate, to be fair.
I know. So
you've been more than generous.
Yeah. So I guess if you're going to do these things, you might as well. It'd be ridiculous just to not to mince your way through it, not sort of mentioning things that might that might not help the people that are watching it.
No, fair play to you.
And all I want to do is kind of like, if you get that spark of anything, and I know I'll get feedback off it. Some might be negative, some might be positive, but at least it's got a reaction by talking about some of these things, because a lot of people skirt over they're too busy chest beating about what they've caught. I mean, I take that as a given. You know, I've been doing it a long time, and if I couldn't catch fish by now, I need to pack up and go and take up knitting or something, you know. It's like, you know what I'm saying? I might as well just do something else, you know.
You can definitely
stamp collecting or something. You know. And,
bit too passive for you. That's
it's a bit, or paragliding or something.
Yeah,
or you know. But you know where I'm going.
I know where you're going.
And I think everyone knows I'm pretty genuine.
Yeah,
I always have a lot of time for people to talk to me and ask me questions.
Oh, definitely. Well, I appreciate you doing this.
But I certainly don't think I'm any I am or out like that. I'm just a normal guy. Our passion is carp fishing, and it's sort of like, you know, it's indulged me and changed my life for 50 odd years. And I've been lucky enough to make some kind of a semblance of living out of it. So I've been very lucky and class myself as that, you know. You're
a lot more modest than you let on, mate. I think one thing that people, and I definitely am guilty to a point of sort of having a perception of you of sort of being a carp angler, but some aspects a bit rough around the edges. There's a lot more depth to you, Frank, mate. And and hence why we've tried to do the podcast in this manner is to show that there is a lot of intelligence, a lot of depth, and a lot of other aspects to you that maybe people don't see on face value.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with me is, you see, I've got an amazing sense of fun, and I've always had that sort of one of the boys sort of having a laugh, and love to, you know, be larger than life, I suppose. And sometimes it masks the fact that I do think about things a lot, and you know, there's more layers to me than people might gather, I suppose.
Yeah,
you know, and but really, you know, I never cease to be amazed at the feedback I get off people. Actually, is quite amazing, you know, and
mate,
very, very, very nice. So I'm always grateful for that. And you know, so it's very good. It's good chatting to you.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate you doing it.
You know. And is there anything else that you
innovation?
Yeah,
mate. You,
right.
I know from the last time we went fishing, you've always got ideas. To be honest, mate, you'd be a multi-millionaire if half the ideas you actually got the money you should have got.
Well, I've got no doubt that I would have been.
You'd be in Marbella somewhere fishing for marlin. It'd be a different podcast.
Yeah,
but that the things that you sort of come up with. Talk to me about a few of them.
Oh well, I don't know. I mean, some things have been my take on things. You know, I think apart from the rig stuff and I did the first plastic throwing stick.
Oh, no, yeah. Make them, didn't you?
Well, I got tennis elbow from using Nina's Cobra ones, which were okay, but you used to kill your arm after a bit, you know. And so I thought, I can't be having this. If you've ever had tennis elbow, it's horrible.
It's a killer,
it's a disgusting feeling. So I was in the shop when I had the shop in probably about 1991, 92, and I thought I had these pole tip tidies for keeping quiver tips in. They're transparent with a red cap on either end. Used to cost about £1. So I thought, if I got that in front of the Calagas eater and swiveled it half the length of it and bent it round like a throwing stick, I wonder if it would work. And I did it and sawed the end off, put a handle on it, took it out, and it was phenomenal. I was like, wow, it's solved it. Problem solved. So I sold thousands of them for about £4.50 each. I didn't want to charge stupid money. And then Dan came in from Corder and wanted to do them. That was one. And I mean, I've not really given it much thought, but there was like, do you know the anti-tangle sleeves that everyone takes for granted now? Well, I worked for Fox for a very short while. And I went to see Cliff and Max, because Max was there at the time. And he says, what sort of ideas have you got? I says, well, I'm sick of using shrink tube as an anti-tangle device. And I'm getting those Corder inline sleeves and cutting them up, and they're £5 a packet. And I says, it just seems a tremendous waste. Why don't we get some moulded specifically anti-tangle to sit over the sleeve? It's no disrespect to Max, but he said at the time, he said, I don't think they'll ever sell. And I said, mate, I disagree. I said, I think they'll sell millions of the bloody things. He said, no. He says, we've got more important projects than that. He says, but we'll see. So he come back after about 3 or 4 months and just threw a packet at me at the boardroom table and said, we're not doing them. He says, I've had 100 prototypes made. He says, what do you reckon to them? I says, oh, they were great. He'd done them in black. I said, I wanted them in green, really, and different colours, gravel and stuff. He said, no, we're not doing them. So you have them. And he says, do what you want with them. So I thought, shit, what a shame. Anyway, I started using them myself and I've loved them, And I thought, I wish I could have them in green. And I went and did one of the, I think it was the 5 Lakes show or something like that. And Mike Kavanagh was there. He was a mate of mine. And he was doing one of those rig, where
demos.
Yeah, because Mike does, he's done he's quite a rig innovator, isn't he, obviously? And so he was doing demos of some of his rigs and things. And I had to go and do one next to him of what I got in the tackle box, And Mike was particularly interested to see what I'd got in my box. And he said, he clocked them and he went, Frank, where have you got these from? So I told him the story. I says, look, I came up with them and Fox ain't going to do them because I said they don't see any future in them. He went, are they mad? He says, can I have some? I says, mate, I've only got them. I says, but yeah, take 20. And then he put it in his rig column, Mike Kavanagh's rig column in Carp World.
Yeah.
And he told the story in there about, anyway, Max wasn't happy, best pleased, because he said the phone lit up and they got all these emails saying, why aren't they doing them? So he said, what have you done here now? He says, this has caused us a load of shit, this. I says, come on, Max. So he did them for pike fishing, for going over traces to start with. Yeah.
In black, weren't they?
Yeah, they were, because they got them in black. They just reproduced them. I says, mate, we need them in green and all that Anyway, he did them for that. And then I remember Dan, I left and joined Corda for a bit. And then Dan says, do you mind if I do them? I said, no, not at all. I said, they're out there now. But it seemed like nothing, but it was like just something that sold probably tens of millions of things, something simple like that. And then, mate, honestly, it's like, I suppose, them depth finder floats. I didn't come up with the idea, Polaris have done things that lock floats and that. And I think from the 50s, there may be some kind of thing similar. But I just came up with my version of it, which was just in a pike float, and easy to do with the eyes on one on the top and one on the side and on the bottom, so it locks in place like a lock slider. And I used it for checking the depths in a split second when I didn't want to make disturbance, letting a marker float up. And it gives you the depth to the inch, which is particularly relevant for zigs.
Perfect for zig fishing.
If you want to fish it 2 inches under the surface, I can get it exactly right with that float, So I've been using it for 30 odd years, and I said to old Chris at Enterprise, I says, why don't you do these? I says, because I'll bring it out myself if you don't, and I'm sure they'd sell. And he says, oh, do you think they'd sell? I says, come on, mate, you're always glass half empty rather than half full. Of course they'll bloody sell. Hope he's not watching this. Anyway, yeah. So we brought him out, and I think he did about 10,000 of them. Guess what? Me being the prize dickhead that I am at times, I says, Chris, just as a show of goodwill, because I've been with you since the Ark was made, I says, you obviously need some new products in your range, And I said, and this is stepping out of the old plastic imitation bait range. I said, you got to think of the future with other innovations. I says, so I don't want a penny of this. No commission, no royalties, no nothing. I says, just see how it runs. And he said, oh my God, we've had to have another massive batch done. And then I showed people how to use them. And you can also use them for fishing over weed beds. So your line's going across to the float. So you'd use a bead and fix it in place so it could slide up to the surface. And then your line can go straight down. You can put a running rig on. And as an aside to that, when the floats come to the surface, whether it's cocked or not, you've got a permanent target in winter for spraying a little bit, say some 10 millis or a few pouchfuls of maggots to keep it super accurate right on top of your rig. So it makes, when putting bait in willy-nilly is a bit tricky and a bit risky, you've got that permanent little float on the top to keep aiming for, and the line coming vertically down doesn't seem to scare them like one cutting through the swim. So that's how it had its advantages, and so that's a little edge that's worthwhile. So it's things like that are like, it's like zig rigs. I first used one in 1991, and I'm not saying I invented a zig rig. Fishing boilies off the lead is no new thing. No new thing. It's probably been used in the 70s and everything, or whatever. With certainly with bread crust and things, anchored crust. We did crust, all. We did that. So, but actually using it consciously and fishing different depths. I started 1991 on Lac de Dare. I had a 47. I had a 47-10 on a 10-foot zig rig with a pink squid pop up on it, and I lost another big chunk as well doing it. And that's when it first came to light to me that just how prolific it can be and interesting. The lake was fishing terrible. It was roasting red hot. It was 105 minimum. It was super red hot, not a cloud in the sky, and the fish were just showing and boiling near this Bresh Point, big concrete harbour. And I remember fishing next to Ron Woodward, big Ron, who he's unfortunately passed away now, but he used to like fishing on Shannon, and he was next. He said it's murderous, this, isn't it? I said, no, I'm gonna try fishing off the lead. He went, that'll never work. I literally cast it out, put the rod down on the concrete, and it was pulled round with 47-10. And then I got another one. I turned me back doing my second rod, and Ron hit it and cracked the hook length off. And snapped off on it. And then I started realising that on the continent, we used it on Rainbow, by the way.
On Rainbow?
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Not near the snags. It's got to be fishing.
No, we're fishing Peg 12.
Right.
Me and Guy Aitkins, we kept it quiet, this. Bollocks to it, I'll say it. We got 12. We got there in the summer. The first time I'd ever fished it properly in the summer because I could only get on in the winter. It's like dead man's shoes to get on there.
Yeah.
So I went with Guy, who's a surface angler. He loves zig fishing and surface fishing. And we're in Peg 12. We tossed a coin with a view to swapping sides halfway through the week. And I'd had 2 off the bottom on the left where there's more stumps. And it's up and down like an egg box out in front of 12. I don't know if you know it. And it was becalmed. It was red hot. The fish just weren't having it. We had some big thunderstorms, some big electricals. And it was sort of like very, very difficult scratching time. The fish wanted to be in the snags and the weed. And we're just in the wrong place. And it seemed like there was no fish in the old swim. So we're proper struggling. And at least I'd caught a couple of decent ones. But Guy's pulling his hair out. He's caught nothing. So he said, will they have it was his first time there. He says, do you think they'll have a floater? And I said, they might have a bit of French stick in the snags or something. I says, but I don't think if you he had 2 sets of chum mixers with him. He said, he said, bollocks, I'm putting some mixers in. So he just kept feeding, putting them in. And not a single rise, nothing.
No.
Dead. I says, mate, a zig might be a different ballgame. A zig could be the one. Because I said, but whatever you do, I said, pieces of foam on here ain't going to cut it. It's not the fly axe thing on here. It's a discarded boilie zig. The old people take a pop-up off and throw it in.
Yeah.
Or a wafter, and they've seen it fall through. I said, that might be a different thing. I says, what I found on the continent as opposed to the UK, it's like it's 2 different planets.
Yeah.
I says, discarded boilies seem to make the zig with a boilie on work on the continent more than pieces of foam. Strange, but true. So he says, yeah. But he had loads of spools and all measured up. He says, what do you reckon? I said, the old 2 feet under the surface, kid. Come on, let's do it. So he'd got them already measured on spools, all matchman-like,
Cool.
So old Guy gets it out there, whoop, puts it in it. He says, right, FW, I'm going to use one of my old, a smoked ham.
Right.
The old smoked ham. He'd got a boilie, so he cubed it. So he put the cube on there, whoops it out, 2 feet under the surface. So we've got 4 each on the bottom, and he's got 1 extra out on a zig. Never even got the indicator on. In a swim that he's blanked for 3 days.
That's mad.
It's just off straight away, and I went, oh my fucking God. It was £28. Wasn't a monster, but it worked instantly. So I'm like racing, like doing a super quick measuring up job to try and get one off. So I thought I'm going to use a pink squid, thinking back to my shanty days when I'd had them straight away doing that, and other situations as well. And we get in and start having them, mate. It's like throwing a switch. It was crazy. And we're like, oh, shit. So I start having them on glow-in-the-dark corn, tipping the pop-up. So I'm having them in the dark. I thought it wouldn't work, but it did. And I'm thinking, holy shit, because I wasn't silhouetting because they were bright colours.
No.
So I put that on just to draw attention to it, and it didn't matter whether it was green or bloody blue. It worked. This ain't an advert by any means. No. I'm just telling you the truth. And then I thought of the implications, and Guy lost what I can only describe as a £70 mirror.
Jeez.
And we had to take to the boat, and we followed it out because he went, we need the boat. It was one of them that just demands attention quickly. You've seen a big volume of water shift. So I've got the echo sounder on while we're following it out in the boat. I says, Guy, you could saddle this bastard up and ride it round the lake. I said, it's a proper chunk, this. It's one of the big ones. So he starts shitting himself then. So he's got sort of 12 pounds stroughed on again, the old up length, and it's coming up. I says, Guy, we're virtually grounding on bars, and then it'd go down to 15 feet, 10 feet, 2 feet. I says, Guy, there's a big chain of bars here, finger bars. I said, if it comes up here, you're knackered. I said, just hold it on the top. Don't give it any line. Anyway, his arse fell out and it exploded and turned over and piled down. You just see the spool screaming, and then zoom, cut him off.
No.
Oh, it was a proper sickener. And I thought, oh. But what I thought was, oh my God, the places on that lake where you could use the zig in the deep water spots and absolutely do some serious damage, and you never see anyone using it.
No one. I've not heard of anyone.
Well, we kept it quiet. So now I can't get to Rainbow for whatever reason. I can't do it. It's not on my agenda to do it. Unfortunately, I love the place. So all I'll say to those that are fishing it is, if you try it, you're going to be in for a massive shock and some serious fish. And oh my God. But amazingly, you can get away with the heavier tackle because we went heavier after he lost that fish.
Yeah, of course.
We're doing it we had some good fish. So that's a very interesting thing. So there ain't no rules. Anywhere where they don't have zigs on here, find out for yourself. Don't just listen to people.
Yeah, love that.
And don't think that just because we catch them on foam in the UK, it's the only thing you can use. Always think you must do a comparison between boilies and foam to see what they want. Yeah. Don't be a slave to either. There's a time and a place for each thing.
Yeah.
And unless you try it and find out,
you don't know.
But it's best if you work as a team. If you've got some like-minded anglers, trying to do it all yourself is just too much sometimes. But if you've got like-minded mates that are up for a bit of a, right, let's all do one on a zig, for example.
Yeah.
Fish them on the bottom, but everyone put one on a zig. But you get some people that are sticklers. Oh, no, I don't want a zig. On the bottom.
Yeah.
And the same means you get some people that just want to do one technique and stick to it everywhere they go. I think they're probably missing a lot doing that. I think it's all about making the most of your time and being versatile, really. And it is a minefield, knowing which thing to choose. The more you know, the more things you've got in your repertoire, the more tricky it gets of choosing the right thing. And I think it's learning from experience when to use what.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's the hard bit that you can't buy. You can't just make a film about that.
No,
it's
years and years and hours and hours, and
it comes with experience. Or now, so you get some of these young kids that are brilliant anglers that adapt to that quickly.
Yeah,
and they're the guys that shine.
Yeah.
And they're natural anglers that have got that flamboyancy and that feel for knowing when to change and when not to. And you can't buy that. You don't bottle it. You can't watch YouTube and pick that one up. You just got to do the hard miles and learn.
Yeah. Yeah, your
It's
own
not a
journey,
quick
your own
fix for that
time.
one.
No, definitely
Some
not.
things in life are not a quick fix. You don't learn to play a guitar by watching YouTube and do it. You've got to pick it up and sit there and practice. It's like casting. You ain't going to become a good caster by not practicing. It's like anything. The more effort you put in, the more you get out. You know, if you're lazy, you're going to get lazy results.
Yeah.
And they're usually shit.
You've not been lazy, mate, have you? That's for sure. Definitely not.
No, I'm not lazy, no.
You, Frank, sort of, as we round off, modern day now, health-wise, I know, obviously, there was COVID that you got, and there's also subsequent stuff you've had after that. It's been better on an even keel now, mate? Or?
Oh, no, I'm okay now. I mean, when it first happened, I lost all the sense of feeling.
You said that
left
earlier.
half of my body. So I got scolded and everything. You know, you get getting in hot baths and you touch it with your feet, and I couldn't tell what it was or anything. And you couldn't tell how cold something was. So another part of my brain had to relearn the job of sense of touch.
Jeez.
And it's pretty terrifying because it went through all these stripping modes, like I'd been burnt in a house fire one day. The next day, it'd be like someone had got one of them. You know, when you have your blood pressure taken,
Not that mine, mate.
and they pump it up too high, and it feels uncomfy.
Constricted.
Well, it felt like my leg was constricted, and my arm and the side of my face.
Jeez.
And it's pretty scary. And then another day, I'd get it like I was sat under a waterfall with running water running down my arm and leg.
That's scary, mate.
And that's your new part, a different part of your brain having to learn the old job, so it doesn't know what's what. So what they advise you to do is to grab different implements that might be a brush with prickles on it and touch that with your eyes shut, so you're programming that part of your brain to know what that is. And so a lot of the time I don't wear socks anymore. I'm touching the carpet all the time to try and get different substances under my feet so that I know I'm learning my foot how to relearn the sense of touch.
Jeez.
So I've got it all back. Just get sort of numbness in my forearm and in my lower leg and the side of my face now and again, but the rest of it's okay.
But you also combine that in terms of recovery and getting back from that. You've had a lifestyle change, mate, ain't you?
Oh yeah, I mean you have to, don't you, when you have a scare like that? I've had to. I used to like the occasional whiskey. I don't like bit of that, or I don't go to the pub anymore. Virtually never. I don't have sugar in tea. I had to change all that, you have a look at your health, just in case it was something else, because my blood pressure was high.
Right.
And I think it was a byproduct of the COVID, because it was just too coincidental. Loads of people had strokes just after that happened.
Yeah.
And, there was a huge incidence of it. And I've always been pretty healthy, and tried to keep relatively fit. And then it all just like a chain reaction, Anyway, obviously at my age, they say your cholesterol's easy to get up there. So I'm watching what I eat. I always ate reasonably healthy, but I'm being super careful now, and I'm feeling pretty good.
Good.
So I think it's a lesson to everybody. I mean, my lads, they always have 2 sugars in tea and all that. I says, listen, you might think you're bulletproof now, but when you get to my age, suddenly things start falling off. So you've got to plan for the future with everything a little bit, and not be too bloody reckless.
I don't think if you went into your lads and says, lads, use it now, it's going to fall off. That's not great parenting, is it, mate?
Well, don't worry on that score as well. They do that. A pair of buggers. They're master swordsmen, them pair.
Mate, chip off the old block, but we won't go into that part of the podcast. One thing that's absolutely mate, and I saw it when you were tangibly in the flesh for the first time, when you were on...
I wasn't wearing a kimono at the time.
We've moved away from this, mate. When we were at the Bite Out of Cancer evening talk, you drew on one of your books, one of your sort of carp artworks, I'm going to call them. They're littered around, not that you can see at the moment, around here. Yeah. But incredible bit of talent, that, mate. How long have you been drawing them for?
Well, I went to art school and I've been drawing since I was a kid, but then I left it all alone for about 30 years. And then when I did the book, a few friends who knew that I liked scribbling and stuff said, hey, you wouldn't do us a quick carp drawing in there, would you? And I did them and they looked shit. I thought, I'd lost it all. It's like playing a guitar and then not playing one for 30 years. You're going to be rusty.
Yeah.
And then it's getting your eye in and seeing the light and darks and the shades and the shapes and forms. So I started doing them more and more elaborate. But looking back, they were terrible. And each one I do, I get better with every one. And then I started enjoying it and doing it. And then they were getting more and more elaborate and sort of like, I mean, I don't take long. I take about, I do them fast. Let's put it that way. I won't go into details, but relatively quick. It's my style. And I ended up getting more and more enjoyment from doing it. And I'd say it's not like fishing, but it's getting up there. I'm almost like got a new hobby again and wish that I never wasted those 30 years of not doing my drawing or art. And when I'm fishing, I like combining the two. So now if I'm getting orders for A4 drawings, for example, for different people, for presents for Christmas and things like, or a memento,
Yeah, they're brilliant.
Yeah, and there's not many people that actually do drawings of carp, I guess. And I think they might be interestingly quite collectible in the future. When I'm tits up and that, they might be worth having.
Mate, they're brilliant. I saw you do that one, and I saw you start to shade it, and it was your mate who you fished the syndicate with, who came with you, didn't it?
Yeah.
We looked at each other and went, he's had a mare there, because you're putting like purple in it and all, lovely outline of a carp, looks spot on. What's he putting purple in there for? But when you layered it, because I'm no artist, mate, it looked absolutely brilliant.
I've got one here. I'll just show I'll give you a couple, Anna.
You have, mate. They're going in the office, pride of place.
There's a few there, I suppose.
I'll take some shots of these, mate, and put them on the podcast so people can see them.
Yeah, so I've got a great deal of pleasure from that, and it's been interesting that people really like them so much.
I love them, mate.
And I think I'm going to enlarge on it. I'm going to get some canvas, and some gouache, and I'm going to also get some oil painting done.
Oof.
And spend some time doing them properly, because I'm much better than they show. They're
good, mate.
I mean, these are just felt tips, and but they're very graphic and strong images.
They're also very as you said before, your style.
Unique style. Yeah. So they're quite different from anybody else's work, and I've enjoyed doing it. So it's been great therapy for me as well, because I lost all sense of touch in my fingers.
Yeah,
and I'm left-handed, unfortunately.
You're like Kakanda.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that.
I'm ambidextrous. I fish like a right-handed
That's
person.
what I was going to say. Your reels were the right way around.
Yeah, but when I played football, I was on the school teams and played at quite a decent level. I used to take a lot of the penalties and free kicks, and up until the last minute, I couldn't choose which foot I was going to kick with.
Oh, he's a proper maverick, isn't he?
Yeah, properly ambidextrous.
Oof.
So I use both hands for most things, Now, let's not use our filthy minds for this.
Yeah, exactly. I know where that's going.
Sometimes it takes two hands.
Wow.
I'm only kidding. I'm pulling your leg.
No, but genuinely, mate, that is a talent. For you, the future, when I talk, you've done so much in the industry. You've done everything from running a shop all the way through to modern day media and whatever. What does the future sort of scream for you, mate?
Well, I keep having pangs to, I did kind of want to start doing bespoke baits again and all the rest of it, but then I thought about it and I thought I'd rather be on the bank fishing, doing what I like most. And what I would like to do, I think I can still contribute. I'd like to do more filming, really.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'd like to show people how to make special single up baits with all the ingredients that I want in there, and to inspire people to try and show how easy it is to make something that's quite successful. I'd like to do ones about how to do the exploding method mixes and, all sorts of things like that. I'd like to go out and show what it's like going back to the 70s with paste baits and freeline, just to see what happens. I'd like to have my own agenda, go out filming and do like what if, or let's see how this pans out, and do a little series like that. I just think there'd be so much I could do, delving in the mind of. And then I'd like to show using my sea fishing float that I do with the where I let it rove around with a bottom bait on instead of a buoyant bait. and spom over the sliding float as it's drifting through the swim, so it's totally natural. I'd like to film all that working and show people how effective that is. Because basically using roving floats, like you are if you're zig fishing, they're static and they're not moving, but my floats, I can use 2 or 3 on the surface. So it's like using a drifter for pike fishing. You're covering loads of ground, and you can easily adjust the depths, and you can get on the with the wind from your back, keep paying line off, and you can have them drifting all over the place.
Cover more and more ground.
And they work at night as well. You just fish them on the buzzer and it just
get this
off.
Man a camera crew, mate. That's all you need.
So that's what I wouldn't mind doing, you know, some of these things and showing that there's more to life than just sat behind buzzers, static. There is other things out there that can be extreme fun. And I'd like to do a video on showing the old classic float fishing, strep pegging, laying on, and fishing over depth, the lift method. Show all the guys how to use it with some of the particle baits. And
I wonder how many people have float fished for carp.
Well, there's a lot of the modern youngsters that have never float fished for carp, and I think it's a bloody shame, because when you're stalking, a lot of them wouldn't know how to set the float up for certain situations.
It's not a shame, Frank's brilliant, because not a lot of people do it, mate.
So I would love to do a film on how to float fish for carp properly, and use all the techniques for river fishing, fishing over depth, strep pegging, all of it. I'd love to do it.
Love that.
I've got a lot to offer, so I think it's bloody shame that I've not had a chance to do it, really, in a lot of circumstances.
Well, not yet, mate, but there's time. And if this podcast is an indicator of anything, there's a lot there, mate.
Yeah.
And you've been very forthcoming, and I have to thank you a load for that.
Well,
mate.
You're welcome as well. I just hope the people appreciate it and like it. And
I'm sure they will, mate. And I'm definitely going to get you back on, mate.
Yeah, that'll do me,
We haven't covered, even scratched the surface.
No, I don't think so.
Before you go, we've got 10 or so questions.
You've got the questions for me.
I don't think I've got 10. I think I've got less than that.
Oh,
mate.
go on, fire away then, kiddo. Let's see what you've got for me.
Kiddo. I love that. Right. North or south?
What does that mean?
Well, which would you pick, north or south?
What, from a venue's point of view?
Fishing perspective, where are you going?
Well, my head says the south because there's bigger fish generally down there, more waters with them in, but my heart loves the north.
Go on, every bit of blue.
Yeah.
Fish 20 years in the past or 20 years in the future?
I'd like to go 20 years in the future.
Ooh, I thought you would.
Well, I've been in the past. I want to see what else is, what lies in the future.
I suppose. Who's your biggest angling influence?
Without a doubt, Rod Hutchinson was really. We became very good friends, and I know he got knocked at the latter part of his life and that, and being classed as a bit of a drinker and all the rest of it. But he was never to be underestimated. He was a super intelligent guy.
Yeah.
Really good thinker. A maverick. Unconventional. Bit scatty and clumsy at times, but he made up for that in charisma. And he had. When I was a kid, he was the man I turned to, reading all his articles first, and that, and he's worked with the flavours and bait innovations, and
he's a bit of you, isn't he?
He's particle, yeah. And what was amazing? He came fishing with me for a week, and we went on Graviers, and he couldn't get on there because I caught them big uns, and we made that film, me and Lee Jackson with Len Gerd. Luke used to let me go on and have a week, and Rod couldn't get on there. He was dying to go, and he also wanted to fish with me, and I wanted to fish with him. He says, "Can I come?" Because I could only take 3 people besides me. I says, "We might never get this chance again to do a week together." I said, "Of course you can come." He says, "Well, I've got to bring Mal Anna, who's his sidekick, Mally Roberts." And I said, "Yeah, bring Mal." So the 4 of us went, and partway through the week, I put him on the best spot. I wanted him to catch a big one. I says, "Listen, Rod, go on the point." He said, "But it's the best day." I says, "Listen, you ain't going to be around forever. Get on that point." And he got on the point, and one day he wanted me to go round. He says, come on over and let's spend some time together. So I went round, and Rod was sat there pretty well sloshed. He got a bottle of whiskey out. He got an half-pint glass, and he said, "You going to join me for one?" He said, "Oh, I've not got another glass." He looked around, someone must have dumped one in the nettles in the past. Like you see a discarded bottle. Well, it was another glass, and it had got spiders nesting in it and webs in it and all kinds of crap and dust in the bottom. "Oh, that'll do. He give it a rough shake and then pours a load of whiskey in for me." So I said, "Oh, sod it." So we're drinking it. I said, you know what, Rod? I said, you were always my favourite. I said, you were always the inspiration. I used to look at you at the shows and be like that. Oh my God, it's actually him. Almost like looking at, you know, Marlon Brando or something as an actor or someone like that. Or, you know, someone super famous. When you're mad on that particular subject, or looking at Ronaldo or something. You know. I says, you had that kind of aura about you. Amazing thing. I says, and then we met at Savvy and became friends. I said, it's mad. I says, you were always my favourite. You know what he said to me?
What?
He says, I've got a confession to make. He says, you're mine.
Oh.
And I thought, wow. That was one of those sort of, you know, fantastic.
Yeah, you can't beat that, can you? What a moment.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Did he catch a few?
Well, he got a run. Yeah, we caught some. Yeah, he got a run and did this. He had his slippers on. He did the most weirdest wobble, and then never even hit the rods and went head first into the lake.
That's quality. That is better.
That's the gospel truth. I mean, I did piss myself. I have to
say. Quality, mate. 3 celebrities you'd take fishing.
Oh, I thought about this in the past actually, and because I love motorcycle racing, I think I'd take Valentino Rossi. And because he'd be able to provide all the bits and pieces, and I love this kind of lifestyle, I'd probably take Ray Mears.
Yeah.
I like him, and I've read a lot of his books on how he does the trapping and everything. You know? And I think he's interesting. And the other guy will surprise you. It's very unusual, my choice, and Bob Lazar.
Really?
Do you know who Bob Lazar is?
No.
He's a stripper. No, he's not actually. I'm pulling your leg.
Lazar?
He's actually the guy that works at Area 51 in. Yeah, he works at Area 51, and he's the one that blew the gaff on the alien space technology and all the rest of it.
He'll have some stories, boy.
Now, anyone watching this, if you're remotely interested, you want to go on to Joe Rogan, Bob Lazar, it's a 2-hour podcast. I put it on when we were coming back from Devon in the car.
Yeah.
My wife, she dismisses a lot of my stuff. She goes, oh, not this again. You know, so watch a lot of YouTube like we all do. Joe Rogan with another guy going into massive detail with Bob Lazar. Now, he's been on 4 lie detectors with the top experts in the world. And
surely he can't talk about this stuff, can he, on a podcast?
Well, he brought it out because he thought they were going to whack him, have him whacked.
Yeah.
And he talks about the 7 different spacecraft that they've had that they've retrieved, and one of them was in an archaeological dig from a long time ago that's intact. Same propulsion system on all the craft, even though they're different. Same propulsion system, anti-gravity, which isn't known on Earth. Element 116, I think it's called, that powers these things. You know, you get a lot of people skeptical about it, but. I mean, he goes into detail. I mean, the scientists that worked there before him, he got to know about this. He got there's a ball inside the motor drive on the spacecraft. It's like the plutonium ball in a nuclear weapon.
Knackers.
And it's got this element that's not known on Earth, and they can control it and spin it round. It uses gravity to motor away at ridiculous speeds. And he goes into massive detail. You have to watch the podcast. And I've read a load of books about him, and you know, the Day After Roswell I've read as well,
yes.
which is quite amazing. You know, these are high ranking.
Yeah, he's not messing.
These are high ranking military people. These, you know, so there's got to be something in it. And then they announced it was an alien spacecraft, and then said in 1949, and then changed it to a weather balloon and all the rest of it. You know.
I'll let you off. You mention in another podcast. I don't think it's a rival podcast. He gets quite a few more downloads.
Well, it's bloody worth listening to. And my wife says, whatever you do, don't turn this off. It's the most amazing thing I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, even your wife liked it?
Yeah.
Oh, you're in then?
Yeah. So that was that. So sorry to give you a long...
Oh, I needed some context. I didn't know who he was, but now I do.
A long-winded answer. But
good answer.
Bob Lazar, Joe Rogan podcast. Get that one in.
Superbike Racing Pro. Or fishing professional.
Superbike.
Yeah, you love them, don't you?
Well, I had a racing career ahead of me. My one big regret in life is that I had a fairly serious accident and demolished the bike and everything. That bike will be worth 130,000 now as well. If I still had it. Super rare collector's pieces. Mick Grant's just selling one now, and it offers over 125,000.
Jeez.
And I had to match him onto it. So anyway, Superbike, yeah, because I've kind of done the fishing thing, and I always wonder what if. And one of my very dear friends I raced against quite a lot is Alan Carter, who won Grand Prix. And we keep in touch, and he's took up fishing, and and we still he mentors some of the British Superbike riders along, and I give him help with the fishing and that, and we're very close mates, and I've been since we raced all that time ago in the 80s, But he won Grand Prix and that, so that's the level we kind of were getting to, and sadly sort of snuffed out. I probably wouldn't be alive if I carried on, because a lot of the guys that I raced against unfortunately lost their lives, didn't it? It was very dangerous in the 80s. So perhaps it was a blessing in disguise, really.
Fair.
Yeah.
Biggest game changer in your fishing?
Oh, wow. Well, I suppose it's the old cliche. I think it's, at the time, it would have had to have been the single upbait approach.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest game changer for me has always been being versatile, and like I've tried to say all through this podcast about, don't be different for being different sake, but always try and
think outside the box.
Yeah, just try and work out if everyone's missing a trick on the venue you're on. That's all.
I like that.
Very underused, very successful techniques that are being wasted a lot of the time.
One thing you'd remove from carp fishing?
I'm not. I know it's too late now. You can't put it back in the box, but I think the social media is a bit of a curse. I think there's a lot of people spend 7 or 8 hours a day on these mobile phones, especially youngsters, and you don't know whether it's frying your brain or doing stuff to you or affecting your health long term. And imagine the time when you're staring at that when you should be doing other things, enjoying nature or looking at the lake more or moving or baiting up or doing other things, and you get lazy, you end up just staring at that thing all the time. Before you know it, 3 hours has gone. And I think it's a curse in disguise. My quick answer is that is a problem, because it is part of carp fishing.
Drum and bass or country and western?
Well, I don't know him from Preston, so I think the drum and bass a bit of
take a bit of drum and bass. Yeah, mate. 3 rules that you'd implement if you had your own fishery. What would they be?
3 rules if I had my own fishery. Wow. God, I didn't get a chance to think about that. Really.
Yeah, I've done you. That's good.
I think no single up baits, lad. I want loads of food going in.
That's a good rule.
And I think it's a shame, because I don't think I'd have any bans.
Would you not?
No, I think I'd be very live and let live. I think the whole point of a fishery is that you should be able to go there and do what the hell you want without constraints like, oh, you've got to buy our bait.
Yeah.
Or you've got to do this, or you've got to do that, and that's banned, and that's banned, and that's banned. It's almost like everybody's sat there doing the same thing. I think that's mind-warpingly boring, that. I think
3 rules.
As long as the fish's health doesn't suffer in any kind of way, shape, or form, I think I'd have that. But yeah, I'd have anyone leaving litter would be banished for life. Yeah. That'd be the first. I think anyone disrespecting other anglers as well, taking the piss, I wouldn't have them. They'd go, casting the swims and just generally being an arse.
Generally being an arse. You're out, mate.
Yeah, and. Well, the letter thing, and
I reckon you've got 3 there between all that.
Yeah,
I'll let you off.
Yeah.
Last question: night in with the missus or night out on the bank, mate?
It depends if she's got an headache or not.
That's the best answer I've had for that, I think, mate. Typically Warwick. What a note to end on. What a boy. Frank, thank you so much.
You're
Not
welcome,
only
mate.
for letting me come into your home and invade your time, but to take up a load of your time as well, mate. That has been a thoroughly entertaining podcast. So much information in there, mate. And I've got to get you back on because we haven't had all the humorous, crazy
No, we haven't had the
stuff.
crazy stuff. But I mean, I've tried to be a bit more sensible for once.
Mate, you've done an exceptional job.
Yeah.
And we haven't had
Well,
any
you have as well.
adventures.
You're an absolute doddle to,
I've done
to have a
nothing,
chat
mate.
with. You
I've
know.
sat on a sofa.
Ah, you're lovely.
A very comfy sofa as
You're a
well.
lovely guy, mate. And, you know,
you're far too kind, mate. You've given me your drawings. We're square. Everybody, thank you for listening and watching. I'll be back soon with another Nash Off the Hook podcast. Until then, Mr. Frank Warwick, you're an absolute star.
Thanks,
Thank you so
everyone,
much.
and Happy New Year to you all. I know it's a bit belated, but have the best year ever. It's been an absolute pleasure.